Part 1 of Who the Fuck Was My Mother? This multiple part series is going to go over the crazy amount of trauma that I went through and the uniqueness of it. This isn't your, oh, I was hit as a kid story, although that is bad. This is different. This is starvation, abuse, murder attempts. I'm going to go into everything, and it all happened before I was 12 years old. So the story actually starts before I'm born, oddly enough. My biological mother is a working woman with an extreme drug problem. She's working the streets of an extremely small town one night when a family man comes up to her and offers money for her services for the evening. This is my conception into the world. This man leaves, never to know I existed. My mother, luckily, stops all drugs and alcohol while I'm pregnant. I know this because in my case files, I was born and I had no problems other than a weird skin condition. After I'm born, the hospital releases me to my mother, even though she had 6 other kids and she's known for being a working woman with a drug problem. Still, a newborn is sent home with her. This is our first act of negligence in the story. Or maybe not, but first major one from people that are supposed to protect, well, anyways. They send me home with her. I have 6 other siblings, all of them older than me, obviously. The oldest one, who at the time was about 30 years old, I think, takes me in and starts to care for me. My mother goes back to the streets, goes back to doing drugs, as everyone could have expected. 2 weeks later, my mom comes back. She's run out of money and she's not finding any more clients. My sister is gone off somewhere. She sees me, and as we all know now, but for some reason was common knowledge for my mother, you can sell children and get money for them. So my mom starts calling around. One of the numbers she calls, though, Children's Aid Society. She lets them know that she's selling her child for money. Of course, Children's Aid shows up, they take me away. This is my last interaction with my birth mother. I will never see her again, just so you know. This is also the last interaction I have with 4 out of the 6 siblings that I had. I'm put into foster care, and my case notes from this time say I adapted okay, but I was very aggressive and I was biting other children, obviously because I'd just gone through some infant trauma. I am a very adoptable child. I can insert a photo. I'm blonde, unfortunately adoptable at this time and probably still now means white, and I have blue eyes. Hitler's favorite, if you will. Anyways, a white family comes in. They see me as a perfect biological match to them. And I really think that was the only quality that they were looking for, because immediately I'm taken. Children's Aid checks in a few times as I do my kind of trial adoption with them. They say everything's going fine, but the notes that are in my case file are 1 sentence long. Child is adapting okay. Nothing more in depth. It feels to me like these visits were 5 minutes at a time, and my mother was putting on a show. Oh, she's fantastic here. Keep in mind, at this time, they were very clever to not start the abuse yet until after the paperwork was finalized. The reason they actually got me was because they took me on a trip to Alaska. On my case note, it says, trip to Alaska, they must be a good family. That's literally what it says. And then they released me to that family, never checked in on me again. I'm finalized, I'm adopted, and things shift drastically. This is where I start to become cognitive. So as all typical abuse stories go, it starts with very severe physical abuse. So beyond the type of corporal punishment that you would expect in the late 90s, like spankings, this was on another level. So if I was getting spankings, not spankies. If I was getting them, it was in front of the whole family, I was naked, and everybody was laughing at me. So it was just that way to take it a step further. I'm not realizing things are wrong at this point because the whole family's in on it, so why would you think anything was out of the ordinary? But things continue because I start getting restricted access to food, water, bathroom, and clothing. So I would wake up in the morning and I would just sit in my room. I would wait to see if they would call me out for that day. Sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes it would be days on end and I would eat Kleenex. If they didn't call me out all day, I would need to get water at the end of the night. So I had memorized the creaks in the floor, and I would wait until the family went downstairs into the family room, and I would hop along the creaks until I could get down to the water cooler where I would put the nozzle over my mouth and I would take 1 sip at a time so it didn't gurgle. I knew that something bad was going to happen if I made that gurgle sound, because one time it did. So I ran downstairs. I was so parched. I swear, I was completely clinically dehydrated. I ran downstairs. I put my mouth under the nozzle and a bunch of the gurgles came up because I guess I hadn't learned my lesson yet. My dad came upstairs and pulled me by my hair up the stairs, back to my bunk bed, and threw me on. This was my only act of rebellion, and I can't stress this enough. I was with this family for 10 years, and that was the only act of rebellion I ever did. I knew at that point that I could never, ever step out of line ever again, because it wasn't being pulled by the hair, it was the look in his eyes. It was like he was going to kill me. I'm not even joking. This is all at the first house I lived with him in. It was the brother, sister, dad, and mother, and we lived in a suburb. And this type of abuse, it was traumatizing. It was the type that instills fear in you and walking on eggshells to an extreme. So if I would come by myself to sit and get food, my dad would grab a stack of plates and smash them behind my head. And then I would go back to my room. I used to be put in a corner. This is before I was in school, so I had free days. I would be put into a corner starting at the beginning of the day, and the family would sit behind me and they would watch a movie, and I would stand in the corner for the whole day with no access to food, water, bathroom, anything. Inevitably, I would have to go to the bathroom, and I wasn't allowed to speak either, so I would be too scared to speak up, so I would just stay in that spot and go to the bathroom. This would result in the public beatings. Then I would be refused cleaning myself after as well. So things started off extremely strong until I went to school. At about age 3, I started school, and this is when the physical beatings had to dial down a little bit, but the other abuse would dial up, because in my mom's mind, I was the devil. My sister was her ringleader. She would plant things to make it look like I had done something bad in the house so that my mother could do something to me. My brother was a bystander, and my dad was either extremely physically scary or dead silent. So as I'm going to school, things are very, very much shifting for me. So my mother starts physically humiliating me at school. So she would break my glasses, duct tape them together in green tape, and then make me wear them. She would grab my hair and chop it off right at the roots at all different places, so I just looked botched, and then she would tell my teachers that I had a behavioral issue and I chopped it off myself, so that it was creating this dialogue that I was crazy and that they had adopted a crazy person and that they were saints for taking care of me. This is the early life stuff, and although it might sound extreme to you, this is actually just the beginning of it, because after we exit the toddler eras, my mother will move me to a farm isolated in the middle of nowhere, and this is where it really picks up. This is where there's murder attempts. This is where there's the giving of my child body to her parents or to her friends' sons, and far, far more things like getting me, I'm so sorry, sometimes I stumble, getting me admitted to a psychiatric institution for 3 months, a live-in full-time care psychiatric institution. Not only that, but she was also drugging me. So I'm gonna cover some more in part 2, but that was part 1 of who the fuck was my mother. Part 2 of who the fuck was my mother. So last time we covered my birth story, how I entered into this family, and the forms of abuse that took off right away. This time we start at around 3 years old, and I'm gonna go over some of the instances just to help you better understand what it looked like, her form of abuse. Because normally when you think of abuse, you think of the major ones like sexual assault, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and all of those things, yes, I experienced, but this was on a different level. So when I was around 4 years old, I started learning how to ride a bike. My sister, who as we know from the previous part was a ringleader for my mother, brought me out onto the street and said that she was going to teach me how to ride a bike. I found this amazing because no one ever interacted with me, so I was very excited to be able to bond with the family, even though they were terrible. She stood me on the bike and she said if I could learn how to balance on the bike on pavement without moving, then I could learn how to ride a bike. I tried to do this for about 6 hours. It's impossible, by the way. You can't do that. And at one point, I finally balanced for like 2 or 3 seconds, and she said, "You're ready to go." My mom came out. They brought me to the top of the hill, and they pushed me down the hill. Keep in mind, this bike had no brakes. I went shooting down the hill, and I hit face first into the front of a minivan. I wasn't seriously injured, but I was pretty banged up after that. This is a perfect example of torture, but hard to describe torture. So as a child, oh yes, I was learning how to ride a bike and I ran into a car. No one's gonna raise a red flag to that, right? They knew this. My mother specifically knew this. My sister, the ringleader, also knew this. There was other unique examples where I would come into my room and there would be a noose that my sister had made for me and instructions on how to use it. And then my sister would come in, show it to my mother and say that I had done it myself, and they would punish me for that as well. There was another instance where my sister would put makeup smeared all over the wall and my mother would come in and punish me for that. And when I say punish, I mean chop off all of my hair, beat me in front of the family while they laughed, restrict all of my water and food intake, all of these crazy things. At around 4 or 5, I stopped being allowed access to the outside world outside of school. So I would go to school, I would come home, and I wasn't allowed to connect with anybody, whether it be in social groups, friends, even church or things like that. I was isolated at home and so heavily traumatized that when I went to school, I wouldn't speak that much. So my mom had some serious mental issues. I still to this day can't figure out what they were, but she projected them on me starting at around age 4. I started going to therapy, but my mother would coach me beforehand on what to say. So things like I was hurting animals. I've never laid a finger on an animal before. That I was hearing voices, that I was threatening to kill the other children in the house. None of this was true, but I would go into these therapy appointments and I would say this. And this was the start of the psychiatric abuse from both my mother and outside forces. So because I was going in and corroborating all of these stories, the psychiatrist would believe my mother and prescribe me pills. She would go to multiple different psychiatrists and I would get multiple forms of pills, and it ended up in me taking handfuls of pills every single day. It made me extremely groggy. I couldn't remember anything. I could barely get out of bed. I was dropping weight at a remarkable amount, also because I was being starved, but this really amplified that. So now I'm put in this defenseless position of not only being a child, but from being heavily medicated for things that I do not need. This is the perfect spot for my mom to continue to alter how the public sees me and how our relationship dynamic is. So it shifts. Inside the home, she is the perpetrator, she is the abuser, but everybody else, this is including close family, everyone at school, they all thought it was me. They thought that I was waking up every single day threatening to kill everybody in the family, and I would either stay silent when they said this to me or say, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Because not only did I get coached to say these things, I also wanted validation from my mother, and I would get it. If I would go into these psychiatrist appointments and say, yeah, last night I woke up hearing voices telling me to kill my brother, my mom would take me shopping after, and I would buy anything from the Lizzie McGuire section that I wanted, or the That's So Raven section. So this to me this is the first time in my life I'm doing something good, so I'm gonna continue to say these things. I mentioned before, this part of my life, we're living in the suburbs. This is where my mom removes me from even being able to see people on the street to a farm. We're isolated in the middle of nowhere and things amp up. This is a brief introduction to the next part of my life, but I'm gonna go into the farm portion after this. And if you thought things couldn't ramp up from this, they really, really can. So the next time I'm gonna be going over the murder attempts, selling me to my mother's friends' sons, and murder attempts from other children as well. Okay, stay tuned. Part 3 of who the fuck was my mother? The last 2 episodes we went into how I got brought into this family and the types of abuse that she started with, but this time I'm gonna go into the harder details that I never thought I would share with anyone, let alone the internet. One of the main prominent ones is her attempts to murder me. So the first one, she drives me to a train track. I'm about 5 in this. and she leaves us locked there until telling me she wants a train to come. Unfortunately, in the countryside, this isn't a very used train track, so after about an hour or two, she realizes no train is coming. Super huffy and puffy, brings me back home, says she'll try again another time. The second time is my mother had a set of friends who had 2 kids, both teenage boys. These teenage boys were terrible people. I'll get into that a little bit later, though, about how she used to just hand me off to these teenage boys for nights at sometimes multiple days on end, and I think we can all assume what happened there. Anyways, these teenage boys came over to my house one time, and my mother, realizing that she couldn't physically push me down the stairs or do anything to hurt me without getting charged, she had to make it look like an accident. So she coached these 2 boys on how to murder me, and I would spend the day running and hiding from them because they were strong and they genuinely were going to do it. They would try. There was one point where I was holding both banisters and they were ramming their bodies into me, trying to push me down the stairs so I would break my neck. This is all a game. All of the adults are laughing while this is happening. I'm emotionless because I was not allowed to show emotion as a child. This seems bad, but if I had shown emotion, it would have been worse. There's more instances of her trying to overdrug me so that I would die. She brought me to a hospital one time because I developed a rash from she says was grass, but I've never had that rash again, so I'm assuming it had something to do with the medication. And the doctor took one look at me and asked me if there was something going on in my house, to which I said no. She pushed me into a shelf one time and I cracked the back of my skull and bled all the way down the back of my head. And there's even instances where she would instill fear in me by damaging herself. One of the more prominent memories is when I was in the kitchen just standing there, and she took out a paring knife and cut off her own finger. Then we had to go to the hospital again. She got it stitched back up. I have no idea how. It was wonky and everything, but I remember thinking to myself, if she can do that to herself, what can she do to me? And although I was going through a lot of suicidal thoughts, I was in my bedroom every single night writing suicide notes and then eating them, because if I had found them, or if someone had found them, they would have done something worse to me. I think you guys can get the theme with this. But I really developed a deep depression and a really deep issue with suicide, which I still actually struggle with today. But aside from this, there was so many more unique examples of this time that I was on the farm, which was the darkest part of my life, where normally I would just wake up every single day. I was also required to do all the chores. So I would wake up, I would clean the whole house. We had 5 cats, 7 dogs, 6 horses, I believe. I would have to pick up after all of them, clean all the litter, do the laundry for the family, excluding mine. I was not allowed to do my laundry. And then whenever I was done my chores, even if it was 2 or 3 hours early, I would go out and wait for the bus because I wasn't allowed to be in the house. So even if it was raining, I would just be standing outside waiting. I would go to school, and I wasn't a very well-received person because my mother was also physically humiliating me. I mentioned before that she would cut my hair off at the ends. She would pull it down and just cut it in multiple different places. So I had spiked hair when I was a kid, but not in like a cool way. I was also extremely malnourished. So I was very skinny. I couldn't form proper sentences from all the drug abuse. And I can't remember the other thing I was gonna say. Sometimes my memory gets spotty when I tell these stories because I have a damaged amygdala from all the trauma that I've been through. So I can't really remember a lot too easily, but when I do, it kind of all comes back in floods, and I guess that's PTSD for you guys. I want to go into more about what happened with my mother's friends' sons, but I think I'm going to use that in a separate part because it's its whole thing, and there should be a trigger warning over that so people can avoid listening to it if they've been through something similar, because I know that that would bring back a lot for people. If you're following along with this story, I appreciate it, because going through something like this, I've always wanted to be able to share what's happened to me. I've always needed to, and I struggle with making adult friends because I feel like they don't, I mask as a very normal person. I feel like they don't know where I came from, and they don't know the person I became after that. They only know who I am now, and I need people to know, and I need people to understand. There's all different types of things that go on in this world, and on top of that, you can still become a normal and happy person. Yes, I go through waves every single day of what I went through. There's no way I wouldn't, but you don't have to live in this fear for the rest of your life. And my whole point in telling this story is so that people who've been through some similar experiences can see that there is another side out of it. We'll always struggle. When you have CPTSD or PTSD, you'll always struggle. It's something that lives with you forever. It changes the chemicals in your brain. It changes who you are as a person, but you can still make a life out of it. Like, I'm 29 years old. I just turned 29 years old. I visited 18 countries. I have a full career. I'm married. I have a beautiful house that I live in with a mountain view. And although I didn't need to go through the trauma to get these things, the trauma hardened me, and I was able to find little silver linings in it to be able to build the life that I actually wanted. So if you want to figure out, or if you want to help digest your own trauma through this story, I'm happy to listen in the comment section. Or if you just want to see that you can make it out on the other side, I can also show you that part as well. Anyways, I'm going to go further into the darker side of it in the next episode. Part 4 of Who the Fuck Was My Mother? So the last time we talked about the murder attempts, we talked about those teenage boys and the basement and where they would take me, and me being moved to the farm. A lot of you brought up a very interesting question though, is if I was being starved, if I was being physically hit, if I was being publicly humiliated with my hair, my glasses, my clothes, why did no one notice? Why didn't anybody do anything? Well, I told 4 people, and I'm gonna go in this part into the 4 major letdowns of my childhood, and if something had been different, if one of those people had listened, my entire life would have been different. So we're starting off with the most major one, my grandma. I mentioned before, I think, that my parents used to go away to a place in Jamaica called hedonism. They were very, very overly sexual people, and they would go away to this nudist resort every February, and I would be left with my grandma for 2 weeks in February in what I consider to be the best time of my entire year every year. My grandma was very guilt-ridden about what I was going through, so I would get everything I want, all the toys, all the food. I would watch Hannah Montana, like all these classic things. I kind of had like a peek into a normal life when I was at my grandma's house. At the time, this was wonderful. I was telling my grandma everything that was going on with me. Sorry, my throat. And I would kick, scream, and cry before she sent me back with my parents. She 100% knew what was going on, and she played the part of a loving grandmother during my childhood. She maintained contact with me still up until this day. She also still maintains contact with the family that abused me so severely. She goes out with them, she's very involved in their life, and she does not tell them that she has a relationship with me. My grandma was the biggest bystander in my life. Every single time that she sent me back to that house, she knew what she was sending me back to. And so now I'll receive letters from her being like, oh honey, I never hear from you anymore. I'll receive checks in the mail, which in my opinion is guilt money. She'll send me videos through my foster mom, which is a whole other thing. Of her just looking sad, wondering where I am. And I find it, as an adult, really pathetic because I was a child. And I don't have to maintain a relationship with you now because my life would have been better if you had intervened, if you had done your job as an adult. You should have never been in my life at all. When I was asking for help, when I was saying what was going on, I should have been removed. I could have lived with my grandma. She could have taken me away, but she didn't. Letdown number 1. Letdown number 2, I think, is going to really, really, really surprise you. My mom was sending me to school with lunches that were very, very interesting, very red flaggy. So it would be either 1 piece of whole grain tortilla with 1 piece of bologna and 1 piece of cheese, but microwaved until it was all soggy. And then 1 plain all bran bar, which is like a fiber bar. And if you remember from my previous part, she was also feeding me like scoops of fiber powder every morning. So I was very irregular and very sick all the time. And that would pretty much be my entire lunch. I met this saint of a girl when I was in a split grade 7, grade 8 class. I was in grade 7, she was in grade 8. She was noticing that I was getting super, super strange lunches. She offered to start packing some for me. And I was like, girl, yes, give me some food. So she, I think it was for 2 months on end, would bring me these extravagant lunches. And I started to open up to her and tell her what was going on in my house. Of course, I didn't have words to explain the severity of what I was going through. So I always, for most of my young adult life, just resorted to it's crazy physically abusive, because that's easier for people to digest and it kind of stops any other further questions. But she knew something was going on, and she said, my dad's a police officer. If you don't get on the bus one night, if you pack your lunch, you can run away from home, you can come to my house and you can tell him what's going on. And I thought, okay, I'm finally free. I'm finally free. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna tell this police officer. So I hoarded some of the lunches that she was bringing me, just in case I needed to take shelter for the night if I didn't make it, or I couldn't stay at her house. And we walked over to her house. Her dad, already home. She knew this. That's why I was going on this day. She sat me down with him and she said, tell your story. And so I did. But like I said before, I didn't have words to explain what was actually going on. So I just resorted to saying I was being really physically abusive. But as we know, as I was getting older, the physical abuse was going down and the emotional, psychological, crazy neglect was going up. And this is how she played the game. This is how she remained anonymous. He sits in front of me the whole time. He's taking notes, he's listening, he's validating me. He says, get in the cop car, we're gonna figure this out. And he drives me right back home. Right back home. Never followed up, never saw him again. Everything continued as usual. I still wonder, does he think about that? Does he lose sleep about dropping that child back off? I was screaming, I was shaking in the back of the car. And of course, because my mother was playing up that I was some sort of psychiatric patient, which there's nothing wrong with it, but I was being labeled as dangerous and crazy. And she just spitted all this out at him and he believed her. And not me, not the crazy, abused, neglected looking child. Letdown number 2. Going into letdown number 3. Sorry, one second. I need to get some water. Okay, letdown number 3. Police officer didn't work, so I thought, okay, it's probably time that I go to a woman. Tell a woman what's going on. My grandma doesn't really count because she is so deep into this cycle of abuse and she's a part of it that her route wasn't gonna work. So I'm gonna go the route of a teacher. Teachers are supposed to protect you. A police officer wouldn't, but a teacher might. So I pulled aside a teacher that I had the biggest connection with. I used to follow her around like a puppy dog at recess because she was like a mother to me and I was obsessed with her. I had like a connection to an adult that I had never had before. So I pulled her aside and I told her my version of what was going on, but I was saying, I'm being abused. I'm being abused at home. And she asked me, do you have bruises? And thankfully I did. And I showed her my bruises and I said, I'm scared. I'm scared to go home. I got on the bus that night. I went back home. She never followed up with it. I called her a couple years ago. I contacted the elementary school again. She still works there. I asked to speak to her. I let her know who I was and I asked why she made that decision. Never answered. Letdown number 3. Letdown number 4. It's a longer story and I'm gonna go into it in the next part. I was wrongfully admitted to a psychiatric institution living assisted center, not like a psychiatric ward, like a live-in house, like the children went to school that lived there. It was a whole thing. I was wrongfully admitted and one day I went to a psychiatrist and he actually said to me, you don't belong here. You are not doing any of the things that your mother said you were doing. And I said, because she's lying. She's lying. This isn't true. And as we get deeper into that psychiatric unit, we'll find out that they are also abusers. And I have never got such a screaming in my life. Like I was enduring a lot at home, but to be screamed at by a psychiatrist that you need to act like your mother is saying, not that, oh, it's a red flag that your mother's saying these things and you're completely different. No, you need to play the part. You need to do exactly what she said you were gonna do. And I was crying. I had no idea how to do that. I was just a silent kid who stood in the corner and tried to not exist. So that's letdown number 4. And I'm gonna go into, I think not the next part, but the part after, I'm gonna go into why I was in that psychiatric unit and why they're in a class action lawsuit right now. I do wanna touch on the fact that I mentioned I was gonna go into deeper detail about what happened with those teenage boys, but I can talk about absolutely everything else, but that one is a little bit hard for me, and I'm not sure that's something I want to spread on the internet because my followers are mainly women. Thank you all, by the way, for following me. But women, as we know, experience this kind of abuse. This is something that we all go through, and I just don't think I need to air that out, and I don't think I need to bring up those wounds for everybody. So I think we can leave it up to the imagination, but just imagine it was bad. I'm really happy to be doing this series. I'm going to continue to do it one by one, bit by bit, day by day. And even after the abandonment comes, there is so much more to unpack after that is extraordinarily different than a normal life. So if you stay tuned for the whole thing, I really appreciate that. But next part will be out tomorrow. Part 5 of Who the Fuck Was My Mother? So the last time we talked about the people that I reached out to for help that did absolutely nothing that could have protected me as a child. And this time, I told you I was moved from the suburbs to a farm, and I really want to show you what the day-to-day was like on the farm because it was continuous for years. Every single day was the exact same for me. So it starts at around 3 or 4 a.m. depending on how much work needs to be done. Someone comes into my room, I'm already late. They're yelling at me. It's my mother. I have to get up immediately in my pajamas. I'm not allowed to go brush my teeth, have water, nothing. I'm handed a vacuum immediately. I start at the top of the house and I take my way all the way down the bottom of the house, vacuuming everything and then going all the way back up with a little nozzle to get all the hairs and go onto the couch, which had couch covers covered in dog hair and slobber because the 7 dogs and 6 cats, 5 horses we had, this place was a nightmare. And the dogs, by the way, St. Bernards. So the hairiest. After I'm done my vacuum, I go to the laundry room. I clean out the litter for the 7 cats, or if I mess up the numbers, just imagine a lot because this is really hard for me to remember and state properly. But I do the litter, and since I'm in the laundry room already, I do the laundry as well, washing, folding for the whole family. The only thing that's excluded, my laundry. Not a privilege I'm allowed. After doing that, I would head to the breakfast table. Oh, no, if I'm lucky, which this was kind of rare. This was like once a month, I'm not even joking. I would be allowed a shower. And this was a family event. So my mom and my sister would come and get me from the bedroom and walk me over to the secondary shower that was like in a guest bedroom or guest bathroom kind of thing. All the other family used the real family shower, but this little glass box one was the one reserved for me because I was too dirty to be around the rest of the family. So they would bring me in. My mom and sister would stand on the other side of the glass. They had never taught me how to wash my hair or my body or which products to use. So they used to humiliate me when I grabbed the wrong things and scrubbed into my scalp with conditioner. And then when I got out of the shower, they would laugh at me and say that I was still greasy. If I was still in the shower, sometimes they would torment me and put their hands in and try to grab at me. So it was kind of like a terror-inducing event. And it actually took me a long time to not be scared of showers after. It was quite intense actually for me. After the shower, I would be brought to put my clothes on, which I mentioned my physical appearance was a huge part of the abuse, like tearing away who I was as a person and giving me no pride and even looking in the mirror. So on addition of my mom rage cutting my hair off at the scalp and having it super botched like that, I would also be put in clothes not clothes that I was going to grow into, clothes that were 4 or 5 sizes too big, shoes that were 4 or 5 sizes too big. So I was holding up, including my underwear, so I was holding everything up like this, like holding it up at my waist, and my shoes were tightened as hard as they possibly could be, and I was walking around like clown shoes. It was ridiculous. I would take my little clown outfit to the kitchen table because it was time for breakfast. I would be given a small 350 milliliter cup, like just about this big, full of Metamucil, 4 or 5 scoops of powdered fiber, and a little bit of water. So it was thick like porridge, and I would have to choke it down. Keep in mind the whole time they're laughing at me. My mother also used to do this thing where she would stand behind me and make this aggressive coughing phlegm noise, and I would just cry because it was so overstimulating. So I have an issue with overstimulation because of everything I went through, and I have had it my whole life. I would just cry. I would cry and I would feel so sick to my stomach from also handfuls of pills I was taking from the psychiatrist, this Metamucil, like everything. I just was so nauseous. If I was lucky to have solid food that day, for breakfast I would be given 2 pieces of bread in between 1 piece of bologna and 1 piece of processed cheese. There's nothing really wrong with that sandwich. It's an early 2000s sandwich. The issue though is my mom would pour vinegar on it, like sog it. And the thing is, this wasn't regular vinegar. This was the vinegar from a can of Costco bean salad. Not even any beans. Like literally just the brine. So I would sit there and I would roll it into balls in my hand and try to swallow it like pills without throwing up. Again, keep in mind the coughing, the laughing at me, everything. This is a public spectacle. It's the best part of their morning, is just sitting here and making fun of me. After breakfast, no matter how early it is, if I got up at 3 and finished all my chores and breakfast by 6, I'm standing out by the bus. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 1 hour, it doesn't matter if it's 5 hours. I'm standing out for the bus. And my parents, or sorry, just my mother, because my dad leaves for work before I finished my chores. We just don't really talk to each other. That's a theme. He never talked to me. So it's just my mother now. My sister and brother are getting ready for school. My mother's standing at the bay windows just watching me to make sure I'm standing for the bus and not moving. Sometimes she would lock the doors and leave the house and go off to Costco or whatever she was doing for that day. And then I could walk around in circles and sing myself songs to pass the time. But normally, no. Normally, I was just standing there like this. I'd go to school, kind of a disruptive kid, kind of strange. I had a little bit of an anger problem because of everything I was going through. No problem. I'd collect my homework from the end of the day and I'd bring it home. My mom would immediately look into my bag, pull out the homework, take it out, set it aside. I'm not allowed to do it. If I was lucky that day, I'm banished to my bedroom immediately. Again, this is after the secondary vacuum of the entire house, secondary kitty litter. These chores are ongoing because there's so many animals. By the time I get home, everything is just hairy and dirty again. So I do that. If I'm lucky, I'm off to my bedroom because I can read one of my stolen library books. I can look through the storage that they put in my room and kind of explore. I used to do a ballet beam on the end of my sleigh bed. It was fun. It was fun being locked in my room. Or if I was unlucky, I would have to sit in a chair. And it was a chair kind of like this one, positioned in the corner of the family room. And I was not allowed to speak, not allowed to touch any of the animals passing by. If the animals sat on me, I would have to sit back like this until someone removed them. If they didn't come to remove them, I would start having a full-fledged panic attack, but silently like this, because I knew I was gonna get punished for touching the animals because, again, there was this commentary that I was hurting animals when I wasn't. But yeah, I would sit kind of like a doll in that chair for hours on end until dinner time. Dinner time would come around. My dad would come home from work. My brother and sister would sit opposite him, the head of the table, and my mom would sit right here. All of the family would build up a paper barrier to the other head of the table, and then I would sit there so they couldn't see me. They would have regular dinners, like classic family dinners. They would all laugh with each other, talk about their day. No one would acknowledge me, and I would be eating my vinegar sandwich again. No one thought this was strange. No one looked at me. It was almost like everyone in the family thought that I was just a burden to be there. And I struggled so long with thinking, like, maybe I actually did deserve this, because I've never heard of a story of a collective unit hating one person, and an adopted person as well. It was so confusing as a child, and I really started to think like I'm bad, like I really am a monster or a demon or something. After dinner though, they would send me off to my no shower, nothing. Like if I was lucky, I got it in the morning, but that was like once a month. Then I'm sent off to my room, and in my room I would read one of the stolen library books. Or if the trauma was too much for me that day, I would just scream, cry. Because in my heart, I felt isolated, but the whole family could hear me and no one would do anything. I would hear them laughing to their TV shows, their family movie night, and I would just scream, cry, and just beat myself, really, honestly, if I'm being honest. And I really struggled with suicide. I mentioned that before. So I would really contemplate how I could get out of this, because again, no one helped me, like I mentioned before. Anyways, thank you for listening to this. The next part, I'm going to go into my wrongful admission to a psychiatric unit and why they were charged with abuse. Thank you. Part 6 of Who the Fuck Was My Mother? Today we're going to go into one of the most highly anticipated parts, which is my wrongful admission to a full-time, long-term care psychiatric live-in unit. So as we know, my mom was taking me to psychiatrist appointments, I was telling the psychiatrist what my mother wanted me to say. So I was hurting animals, I was seeing things that weren't there, I was threatening to kill my siblings. Of course we know none of this is true, but this exchange resulted in me getting handed a bunch of pills every day. So I was being consistently drugged with the pills the psychiatrist was giving me, and I was being labeled as early onset schizophrenia, extreme bipolar, danger to other people, all of these things. These therapy and psychiatrist appointments would go on for years and years until one day they would hit a breaking point. My mom woke me up one day, packed a little thing of my stuff in a duffel bag, and drove me to this psychiatric place. As every time we went up the road, I did get a little bit excited, because if I would go into these psychiatrist appointments and say what she wanted me to say, then I would get rewarded. And I would get rewarded with gifts, and the gifts I would be allowed to keep. Because as we know, I got a lot of gifts during my childhood, but they were always bought for me and set in front of me. But these ones I was allowed to keep. So I was actually kind of excited every time we were going to the psychiatric unit. But this time, pulling up the lane, what I didn't know is that I wouldn't be leaving. So instead of pulling into the normal right-wing psychiatric place where appointments happened, we pulled into a different wing. And I went, this is so bizarre, because if you've heard of the GATE program, it's exactly similar to this. So we pulled into a different building. I got brought in, sat in the waiting room until they called my name, and I went into the room alone. There was a new psychiatrist there that I hadn't seen before, and he pulled out these little like cards, and the cards had wavy lines on them, stars, a square, a circle, and he laid them all down upside down without me knowing where they were, and asked me to tell him which one of the cards they were. Does that make sense? Like, he would point to one of them upside down and say, "What is this?" And I would say, "It's the star." I got most of them right. And then we did a numbers test where I would have to repeat back a really long list of numbers. I would listen to frequencies to try to hear something in the frequency. I'm not really sure. This is the only time I did this test, but it ended in me being admitted to the facility. So I think this was like the last entry requirement for me to get in, but my mom knew that I was probably gonna pass this and I was gonna get in anyways. So she hands me my duffel bag, and I get driven down the road of the psychiatric grounds to a suburb looking place, which I never knew was there the whole time that I was there. There's kids running around outside, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm getting unhomed. I have no idea what this is, but I'm not necessarily upset, because my mother is crazy, and getting out of that house would have been a dream for me. So this was kind of exciting. So she hands me my suitcase, or my duffel bag, sorry, and I get out of the car, and I don't see her again for 3 months. So I'm living in this psychiatric unit in this house with a bunch of other children. There's a room in the basement that is a typical mental asylum sponge room, where they would throw children in if they were being too loud or disorderly, which would come out later as abuse, which they are being charged for right now. But we would wake up every single day, have multiple psychiatrist appointments, and then we would have some free time, and then we would go to school, things like that. I had fun for the first week, but things kind of took a turn when I realized that there was something really wrong with the doctors and really wrong with the people who were running this place. I started to notice when I said, "I really want to ride a bike, and I see that you have some bikes available, so can I go and ride one?" We know the story about me riding a bike, and I never actually really learned after that incident of being pushed into a car. But then again, it happens again for me. So I grab one of the bike, and it's a very steep hill. And the doctor says, "Just get on the bike and we'll push you down the hill." This bike had no training wheels, no, like, there was like one of the pedal back to brake things, so no like grip brakes that you can grab. I didn't really know how to use this bike. It pushed me down the hill, and I ran face first into a tree and split open this part of my face. I was like thinking to myself, this is bizarre. This has happened to me before, and I knew that it was wrong the first time, so why is it happening again with a doctor? I push it aside. Meals start getting a little bit intense at the psychiatric unit, because these kids are here for a valid reason. And as a child who shouldn't be in this environment, it was very, very scary to witness some of these actions of the children, the tantrums, the screaming, the aggressiveness. It would come to find out years later that the doctors were also essaying the children. It didn't happen to me, but the other children. So it was rising. They're already big anger issues, it was rising it even more because they were being abused. But sorry, this story is really hard for me to say for some reason. But yeah, things started to take quite a turn. So although I was enjoying my day-to-day life there because I had the most freedom I've ever had in my entire life, there were these underlying dark messages. So the doctor pulled me aside one day and said, your mom said that you're hearing things, said that you're throwing tantrums, threatening to kill other people, but you're not acting like this. And I said, well, it's not true. Like that's just what I say for her. I don't do those things. And then he proceeded to start yelling at me, screaming at me, saying that I needed to act like that because that's what my mom said, that's how I should be acting, and nothing will happen unless I'm honest about who I am. And I didn't know how to react to this, so I just shut down because that's what I was used to. I was used to just shutting down and not talking. It was really terrifying. A lot of this psychiatric unit, I actually blacked out. And at one point I just remember trying to escape through the fence. So I wish I could tell in more detail what actually happened, but I know that there was a lot of darkness that went on there. It ended one day, and I wish I could tell you what age I was, but I know it was the Hilary Duff Dignity Tour. Like that's how I remember things, by events, not by ages, because my mom picked me up and it had been so long since I was in a car that I was nauseous, like very, very, very nauseous. And I wasn't upset to be going back with her because things were getting very dark at the psychiatric unit. And as I remember more, I'll tell you more in other videos, but she took me to the Hilary Duff concert. We went in, she bought me every single thing that I wanted from the concert, and then dropped me back off at the unit. And it was a couple weeks later that I ended up going back home. I remember thinking to myself, something is off because now you have shown me what, even though it was bad there, now you have shown me what a real life could be like with a little bit of freedom. And I am not comfortable sitting in this house quiet anymore. I started to feel I was coming up into my preteen years. I think I was 10 or 11 or 12 maybe. And I started to want to fight back. So my mom was sitting outside one day and she was yelling in my face about something, and I was just like this, like, sorry if you can hear the construction. My face was just stone. And she yelled one more sentence at me and I screamed back for the first time ever in my life, and I said, why are you doing this to me? And she grabbed me by the shoulders and threw me off of my chair. That was the first time that in years and years and years that my dad had seen her physically abuse me. And so they got in a fight about that. And don't think he's some sort of hero. He was a complete bystander. He never spoke a sentence to me my entire life. I remember the only time he spoke to me was when I was on the farm and I was mucking out the stalls, and he came up to me and said, you need to be a lot nicer to your mother. It's the only thing he said to me. So him standing up for me right now, I couldn't care less. Couldn't care. The craziest thing though is, I don't know if you guys know, but I read tarot cards, and I have for years and years and years and years, because when I was younger, I was having weird predictions about the future, really accurate predictions. So I went back into my room after that incident on the chair when my mom pushed me, and I looked outside, and there was a line of trees on our farm, perfectly cut line of trees that separated like the other acres from like the home area. So sorry about the noise. I looked out the window at the trees and I said, this family is about to abandon me. If I'm right, move all the trees this way. And I swear a gust of wind came so big that they flew to this side. And now we're coming up on the part where I escaped this family. At 12 years old, I'm legally abandoned. That'll come next. Who the fuck was my mother? This multiple part series goes over the crazy amount of trauma and unique abuse that I went through as a kid, which a lot of people have related to a child called It. If you're watching this part, you're arriving at the biggest climax of my life so far. I'm 12 years old and I'm gonna walk you through the day that I was abandoned. It starts at 4 a.m. I wake up, it's my normal routine. I vacuum the whole house, I clean up all the dog hair. We have 7 dogs, 6 cats, 5 horses outside. So you can imagine it is filthy every single day. After I do my vacuum, I do my other regular chores like the kitty litter, going outside to clean the lawn. I also do the laundry. After this, my mom is still not awake. This is highly unusual. She got me up for the day and then went back to bed. Normally, I am never, ever alone. In the instances that I am alone, I do something that's like a little bit rebellious, if you would say. Normally it was food related because I was being restricted all of my food and starving, like the definition of starving. So normally I would just go straight to peanut butter and take scoops of that. But today, when I was cleaning, I found a bag of toonies, which in Canada are $2 coins. It also happened to be the day of the Scholastic Book Fair. Huge reader, as we all know. I was stealing books from the library so I could read them at home, and I was very excited about the Scholastic Book Fair, but in no world would I ever ask for money for it. So being a kid, not understanding how money works, I just reached in, I took as many toonies as I possibly could, probably about $50 worth, and I put them into my bag. My mom's still not awake, no problem. I skip breakfast and I head straight out to go wait for the bus because we know whenever I finish my chores, I'm just out waiting for the bus because I don't really have access to leisurely enjoy the house. So I'm just standing there, very excited because I have toonies in my bag and I will be participating in the Scholastic Book Fair this year. I get on the bus, I go to school, I use the $50 to buy everything I want from the Scholastic Book Fair, and then I hear an announcement over the speaker asking me to come to the office. And I was like, oh boy, what have I done this time? Because I was already suspended for 2 weeks when I was a kid, but that's a whole different story. I actually didn't do anything wrong, but still my mother. Anyway, so I'm starting to sweat a little. Anytime that I've been called to the office before, it's been something that my mother has made up and I'm getting in trouble for something, or I'm being pulled out of school to go to a freaking psychiatric ward or something like that. So it's never good. I'm slowly walking my way to the office and I have this big pit in my chest because I know something is about to happen and I can feel that it's worse than the other times. Sorry. So I go into the office, I look down at the ground and there's a garbage bag. The garbage bag's peeking open slightly and it is my clothes. The principal looks at me with very sad eyes and there's an older man sitting in the room who I've never seen before in my life. They tell me to sit down. The first sentence they say to me, is, your mother and father have legally abandoned you and you will be taken to a foster home now. And I just, what? What do you mean? You won't be seeing them again. And they say it's because you stole money. I'm terrified because I did. So I say, what would I do with money? I don't have any money. They say, okay, it's okay. Don't worry. We have your clothes here. We're going to take you in this car and we're going to go now. I'm numb at this point. I don't know what this means because hearing your family abandon you normally is like a blanket bad thing, but this family was so terrible to me. So yes, I'm not going to the place that I know and have grown up in, but maybe I won't be tortured anymore. So it's this two really opposite intense feelings kind of merging into one, which just turns into numbness. I'm taken out of the school and I see a red pickup truck. I get into it with only this man. He turns out to be a social worker from Children's Aid. We start driving back in the direction of the farm that I was taken from. I start to panic. Is this all a joke? Am I being tricked again? Am I going away to some wilderness school? But he veers the opposite direction and goes 2 streets over. Keep in mind, we're kind of from a smaller area, but not small enough to place me 2 streets away from the abusive home that you were obviously removing me from, or not removing, I was removed from, but 2 streets away seems kind of crazy to me. So we're driving and he says, we're coming up on it soon. So I'm looking out at the houses and I go, maybe that, hopefully that one looks nice. Oh, that one's pretty. That one has like little animals running around outside. Maybe I could live there. And then I see one house and I think, oh my God, no. Anyone but that one. Anyone but that house. And we pull in. We pull up a long drive. There's a just dilapidated fence on the right side housing these ratty looking goats. I love animals, but these goats are looking crazy. We pull farther up the drive. There's an old house sitting at the top of a hill. And to the right, a bunch of dead deer hanging from a pole. I'm from a farm, but I'm not from a hunting farm. I also have, I have nothing against it, but I'm personally very, very against hunting. And like, maybe I shouldn't say that, but like, it kind of freaks me out. So pulling into that drive and seeing all of those carcasses was kind of a lot for me. So he says, this is it. And I go, well, okay, we'll see. What could be worse? So he pulls me out of the car. I go into the house and it hits me right in the face. Cigarette smoke, right? Poof, holy cow. And I look to my left, and I kid you not, hanging from the ceiling is a chain of troll dolls. Cigarette smoke and troll dolls is what I see first. Off to a great start. Oh, and carcasses. This lady comes around the corner. She's about 65, really raspy voice. And she says, come in, sit on the couch. And I was like, okay. So I come in, I sit on the couch. I'm 12 years old. And the first thing she says to me is, do you have your period? And I said, no. So what is this? And she just asked me logistical questions. No one's asking me how I'm feeling. No one's asking me, oh, you were just unhoused from your family by their choice. Are you okay? No. I'm set upstairs into a room. I look around the room. It's okay. There's a TV in there, so that's new. That's an upgrade for me. I get excited about that. And I'm told that I can put whatever I want on the walls. Okay, things are kind of looking up here. But for the next 2 weeks in this house, I just sit. I go to school, I come back, and I just sit in bed like this. This is a foster family group home kind of halfway situation. I didn't really understand that at the time. I thought I was living there permanently. So I started to adapt my life to there. As I said, I was allowed to hang things on the walls, so up goes Justin Bieber pictures. I start to feel a little bit more like myself. I've never had any sense of self-expression before, so this is exciting. I start popping Big Bang Theory on the TV. This is helping me get through the depression. So instead of just sitting like this, I'm watching the Big Bang Theory. I'm loving it. I get told I'm allowed to call my friends. I have a birthday party for the first time in my life. Exciting. All of this at the same time, it turns out, I had also received from my grandma, which I've spoken about before. She likes to give me guilt money. I had received a trust fund of sorts from my grandmother, which was all being siphoned out into this woman's pocket. And my grandma still to this day has a connection with her, and she is still spending my grandma's money. So I'm talking to my friends, I'm having Nutella for breakfast, that's crazy, and she's stealing from me. At this point, Children's Aid starts coming back around, letting me know that there's a family interested in me. This family is the cousins of the original family that had just abandoned me. They are still closely tied, and both of the fathers work together. My father and the one that would be my new father. I'm told I get to start visitations with them and choose where I want to live. And I think I'm gonna have to end this here, but we're gonna get into the next part later of how I chose my house and what the fuck happened after that. Thanks for watching. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 8. If you're just arriving, I have been legally abandoned by my adoptive family that I thought was my real family for my entire life. I've been placed into a foster home. First thing I notice is carcasses hanging when I pull up onto the driveway. When I enter the house, it's a big smell of cigarette smoke, and there's troll dolls hanging from the ceiling. The foster mother is a little bit rough around the edges, and at this time, I'm the only child in the house, but more children would come and kind of rotate in and out because it was a transitional foster home for people. I start off the first 2 weeks here very numb. I'm not doing anything. I'm not really speaking all too much, but I am journaling. I'm not journaling about what had happened to me. I'm journaling about how much I hate it there and how much I hate the foster mother. She is blunt, she is aggressive, and as we know, she was stealing my money. And I started to figure out around this time too, because I got a call from my grandma. This is around when the first couple generations of iPhone were coming out. My grandma called me to let me know that she had purchased me the new iPhone, which as we know, she was guilting me with money and things like that. She had purchased me the new iPhone and that she had given it to my foster mother to give to me. And I said, oh, I did receive a phone, but it was a Walmart flip phone, which I wasn't complaining about, but it was very different than what my grandma had said. My grandma had said there was a full paid plan for this cell phone. And I received a card that, like a top-up flip phone that I had to fill with my own money, which means I had to ask my grandma to fill the card on my phone. So this is when I started to realize, I think she's taking some of these things from me. And my grandma started to realize as well that she was. So she took me to go get my own like laptop and things like that. The funniest thing though is we both knew right off the bat that this foster mother was taking my grandma's money, but my grandma still to this day has a relationship with her and will only communicate to me through my foster mother, which I find very unique. So as I'm living at this farm, I'm starting to adapt really, really well. I'm able to be more social with my friends. I actually have a birthday party for the first time in my life where I'm able to bring friends over. And I started to think, okay, like she's rough around the edges, but it's not as bad as it used to be for me. And I get to eat whenever I want now, and I get to speak with my friends. So maybe I can just kind of live here, and this is just what my life will be. I still had chores like I did on the original farm, but it was more like get up in the morning and go and feed the goats. And that was no problem to me because although a little bit ratty, the goats were actually really sweet and cute. And it was nothing compared to what I used to have to do. There was one day where she woke me up and it was my day off. And the effects of the trauma started to kind of get to me, where she asked me to remulch all of the gardens with like that gardening mulch. And I sat down and I just scream cried. And I didn't understand why at the time. I thought I was being overly reactive and ungrateful for the situation that I was in. But looking back, it's because it was almost an exact model of what I was going through at the original farm, of like waking up and being given these insane tasks. Like one of them was fully repaint the entire farm's fences, like remulch all the gardens. And I'm 12 at this time. So I would just be full of anger when I was asked to do these things, full of anger. I would go back into my room and write it down and be like, this is ridiculous. I'm pretty much like, I'm just a maid here. That's the only reason people bring me in is to clean things. But what I didn't know is that my foster mom was also going through my room. So she ended up finding my diary, reading it, sitting me down and having a 2-hour, 3-hour conversation with me about how ungrateful I was and how I am taking this situation for granted and I should be thankful, which is so toxic looking back because there was no love present here. Children's Aid never checked on me again. I was never offered any support for what I had just went through. I was actually immediately put to work, and just because the situation in my mind was slightly better than what I was used to, I just kind of went along with it with no pushback. And I was just privately documenting my feelings, which if we kind of unpack trauma, it's just me unpacking what I had went through in my actual home. But the easiest way for me to talk about it was with what was currently happening. So to get reprimanded for that by someone I don't even know, someone that doesn't have any maternal qualities over me, that was crazy. I genuinely started to hate this woman. But I would go up into my room and I had decorated it with Justin Bieber posters on the wall. I'm a huge traveler, but I put a huge map over my bed and I kind of just manifested like all the different places in the world that I would see. And then I would watch The Big Bang Theory on the little TV that was provided in my room. So at least I had like a place to kind of relax and kind of recoup myself. I was also introduced to the foster mother's biological daughter and that biological daughter's daughter. She was, I believe, 8 years younger than me. Like I was like 12 and she was like 4 or something. Like she was very young, but because my mental age was still kind of regressed from what I had been through, her and I became best friends. So we would play dress up together and I kind of felt like maybe I was building some sort of family, even if it was another strange, bizarre, kind of immoral one. When I started to get really comfortable is when I was presented, as soon as I got more comfortable, I was presented with a question, do you want to stay here? And I said, yeah, why not? This is the best my life has ever been. Yeah, sure. And after I said yes, I was told that there was another family that was interested in me and that they would be coming to interact with me and to let them know about me, but that I already knew them. I already knew them because they were related to the family that had abandoned me. Closely related. So closely related that the father from both families, my father and this other father, worked together in an office of like 8 people. I'm talking connected, but they were interested in taking me. And even though I had already said yes to this foster family, yes to them being my home, I also agreed to visitations with this family to see what they were like. I'm walking on the long driveway one day on my way to go feed the goats, and I see a minivan pull up. Out of the minivan gets two young girls. One of them is my age, one of them is younger, and one boy, and then a father and a mother. And they start walking up to me, biggest smiles I've ever seen. I recognize them. These are my cousins. My family from the farm was extremely removed from extended family, but I was told that this family had been trying to contact my original family to get the kids and me together so that I could interact with them, and that they knew something was going on in my home and they wanted to remove me from it. So I was told that these wheels were in motion long before I was ever abandoned. And looking back, could have been a key to why I was abandoned, because someone had opened up a position for me to be in their home and my family just kind of left me one day. So they introduced themselves to me. They offer me an excursion with them to go to their church youth group. And because the daughter is my age, one of the daughters, we immediately head to each other and we start to bond. She was wonderful. I go to the church group with them, and as I'm interacting with the mother, I look down at her hands and I notice something is very different about her hands than other hands. The skin looked like it had been pulled back like this, the nails were harder and in a different shape than normal, and the fingers were shorter, kind of like this, shorter than what they should have been. She was very tan, and she had tighter skin, and I initially knew something is different about this woman. Something's up, but no one's really telling me what it is at first. So I go to the church excursion and I start to learn a little bit about this family, and I'm gonna cover what happens with them in the next part. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 9. So now I'm at visitations with this family that wants to be my new family. We know that they were reaching out to my original family to ask them for visitations with the children of theirs, and because potentially they wanted to bring me into their family because they knew what was going on with the family that I originally had. Sorry if that's confusing. The first visitation they pull up, I tell you that there's 2 daughters and 1 son. One of the daughters is my age. We immediately hit it off. The visitations include things like going to church, going to community groups, very wholesome things, going to their house to see the kind of layout, and meeting their animals, all very wholesome, Christian forward things. I'm getting along very well. You can imagine from going from the farm that I lived on with my terribly abusive family to this really odd foster family that I'm staying in to this picturesque family. Oh my goodness. You can imagine things skyrocket. I'm exhilarated. I will be let down by them though. This is not as picture perfect as I'm making it seem. This is just my initial wave of excitement. So I had a choice between 2 families. I could have stayed at the foster family, and initially I actually did choose to stay at the foster family. But it wasn't after building a relationship with the older daughter and the younger daughter, who's absolutely amazing. But you know, when you have someone your age, it's just instant connection. They start to realize that maybe I'm a good fit for the family. I'm presenting really well. No signs of trauma are here. Nobody knows how bad it was, what I went through, and I'm not able to talk about it yet. So everyone's just kind of assuming, oh, this is like basic abuse, but she's gonna be fine when she gets into this family, when she gets surrounded by love, it's all gonna be good. Because I'm getting along so well, they decide to send me and the older sister, the one that's the same age as me, to a Christian camp. We go away to the sleepaway camp, and we're told, as we're getting dropped off, that halfway through the camp on this specific day, that's when the legal adoption for Ellie is going to go through. Ellie will officially be your sister on this day. We're ecstatic. Me and this girl who I will not name are just like this. We're bonded. We're we're telling everybody at camp, we're sisters, we're sisters. I feel the most elated I've ever felt in my life. I can't believe somebody wants to call me their family. This is insane. The night of the adoption rolls around. Me and this sister, oh, this is kind of heavy. Me and this sister sit up in our top bunk. We let the camp counselor know this is the day that we're becoming sisters. We're gonna stay up until midnight. We have to celebrate. The camp counselor's like, absolutely, no problem. Just don't wake the other girls. We sit in the top bunk, and it was one of my favorite memories, where we went through the whole alphabet and we would just try to name different frogs associated with that letter, but neither of us knew anything about frogs. So we were just making stuff up and laughing, and then 12 o'clock rolled around. We hugged, we bonded, we said we're officially sisters, and we were ready to spend the next week of our camp before we went home. At the beginning of this camp, we had already known that we would become sisters, we would become official family, and it was time for me to turn a new page. So not only was I going to get legally abandoned during this camping trip, I also needed to reinvent myself. So we changed my name. My name is not Ellie. It was something else. And we decided, we went through a bunch of different names, a bunch of different options, and we landed on a nickname version of my middle name. So we landed on Ellie. I started telling everyone at camp, my name is Ellie. We had decided slightly before that my name was gonna be Ellie, because then right when we went into camp, we started rolling it out, and it just stuck. And I never ever went back. My name was always Ellie from there on out, and I completely separated who that younger version of me was from the person that I was going to be. We finished the second week of our camp. We're getting picked up. The minivan rolls up. I see the parents get out. We sprint up. We say, did it happen? Are we sisters? Are we sisters? They say no. No, we'll explain later. My heart drops, because trauma is sitting on a teeter-totter, and I was balancing right in the middle. And sometimes swaying to the edge where, oh my God, it's all over. I'm not a traumatized person anymore. I'm really gonna be adopted. And now when I hear, oh, we didn't actually do it, boom, right down to the other side. Right comes back the depression, right comes back all the anger, everything. We drive back to the house. I'm not talking. I have nothing to say. Also, in conflict, because I was never allowed to speak as a child, I would shut down, and I physically could not speak, like physically nonverbal, could not speak. So I just didn't. But when we got back, a couple of days later, we celebrated Ellie Day. In lieu of an adoption, there was a celebration, there was a cake with my name, and we were celebrating me being a part of the family, even though it wasn't legally. When we had a discussion about why I wasn't legally adopted, we were told it was because of the money. I'm now realizing that I was legally a crown ward. So like a guardian, my guardian was the state, and they were like my legal guardians for the time. But they were also receiving money for me being a crown ward. And I can't figure out any other explanation for not going through with a legal adoption of a child that needed to be adopted other than money. This frays our relationship right at the beginning. How am I supposed to build a relationship with you if the first thing you've done is let me down about something major like adoption? I am immediately jealous of now the girl that's standing beside me, the exact same age, who is legally theirs, who is their actual daughter, and then who am I? Why am I a part of this? We go to Disney World. It might seem dramatic for me to say to you, but this is the reason they are not my family today. This is the reason that we were not able to have a connection, and the reason things got so bad in this house, which I'll go into later. Things got so bad. We were in Disney World, we were waiting in line, and I had the courage to look over at the mother, because most of my relationship was with the mother. I never tried to pursue a relationship with the father, because if you know, the father in my actual home was present, but he never spoke to me. He never developed a relationship with me. So it wasn't actually something that I ever thought that I would have, and never thought that I wanted. I wanted a relationship with the mother. So I was standing beside her in line and I was hugging her, and you know when you can feel that the energy is off, that someone doesn't want you touching them? I could feel that. So I pulled myself away, but I still looked at her and I said, so can I call you mom? This is my asking, can I call you mother? And she didn't answer. She looked at me, she fully heard me, and she turned her head away. And I have no understanding as to why. Why? Why would you say that you would adopt a kid, even if you're not legally gonna do it? What am I supposed to call you if it's not mother? If you're gonna say that you're adopting a new daughter, if you're gonna tell everybody that I'm your daughter, why would you not give me your permission to call you mother? Bizarre. So things get really tough in this house. They get really tough with the relationship with the girl that's the same age as me. They get really strained between me and they get really strained between me and the relationship with the parents. And I start to develop some of my own internal issues because of the trauma that I've been through. I start to develop some eating disorder issues, some really negative relationships with boys around me because of attention, and that lack of respect from men in my entire life made me have no idea how to properly get treated by men and accept much lower than what I was owed, you know? So in this next couple parts, I'm gonna start going into what the fuck really happened with this family and why I was abandoned again. And after that, some of the life-changing, unique, and dark choices that I made towards myself that still have effects on me today. Thank you. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 11. So if you're catching up now, I've just chosen my new family. I chose the Christian family that was from the upper middle white class. One daughter that was my age, one daughter that was younger, and then a son that was younger as well. After I've officially chosen this family, we know we passed through my adoption day that never happened, and we celebrated the first Ellie Day, which never came around again. The next time, I remember the day that it happened the first year, and when the next year it came around, it just didn't happen. The first couple of years with this family kind of teeter between extremes. So it's either I'm fully absorbed into this family, I'm thinking they're gonna be my new family, I'm calling them mom and dad, never to their face, but to my friends, I'm referring to them as my parents around the other siblings as well. I just have a hard time saying it to them. And when I'm not in that mood, I'm in the exact opposite mood. This isn't my family. I know this is gonna end. Everything here is terrible. Everybody hates me. There's no in between. There's no in between, because with the amount of unhealed trauma that I had, there was no way for me to just operate at a normal level. So on the good times, it would be instances where we were on vacation, which was happening a lot for some reason. We went to Disney World, and although we had that experience where I said, can I call you mom? And she didn't respond, the trip to Disney World was really good. It did teeter to the negative side though, because I started to really feel the competition between me and the daughter that was the same age as me. So one of the instances in Disney World was she got a refill on a pop that she shouldn't have gotten, and it said no refills, and it gave me anxiety because I was never allowed to do that as a kid. So I went and I immediately told on her, because also I wanted the leg up against her. I think I wanted my old sister's position in the family, where if there's one person that's gonna be picked on, it's not gonna be me this time, so I'm gonna be on the other side. So I went to the parents and they did nothing about it, and then I got this like deep anger inside of me because I was like, oh, if this is my other family, you have no idea what would have happened to me. And it's not like I wanted those things to happen to her. I just was in this, I need to protect myself from that position again, so I must take the higher one. Do you know what I'm saying? So this also made them look at me differently, thinking that I was just out. Keep in mind, there's this narrative about me that I'm aggressive, psychotic, all of these things that this family knows about. So when I start like kind of manipulating situations like that, they start really believing what my previous family had said about me. And because they'd never asked me what actually went on, this was just the narrative they had. So they start looking at me like, oh no, maybe they were right. Did we adopt a bad kid? And every time those moments would happen where I would see them look at me like that, it would like break my trust in them a little bit more. So the first couple of years, things start falling apart at kind of a rapid pace. It starts with a relationship with the sister. So when I move into this home, we're living in their original home, which is like carpeted floors. It's extremely nice, but they called it their child home because it was like safe for children. My sister and I were living in the same room. We had 2 twin beds and they had renovated it for us with IKEA, like bridges on the walls, like classic IKEA. It was really nice. But because we started getting in so many aggressive fights with each other, there was even one fight where we sat down in the room and the father was in the room and he was like, so do you guys hate each other? And we said, yes, we hate each other. We hate each other. And it got really, really dark. We would always make up and we would eventually be friends again because the 2 of us didn't really understand why we were doing this or what was going on between the 2 of us. It was mostly to do with like her shared attention that she now like had to give to this new girl, and me being like, why would you bring me in when there's a girl the exact same age as me and you clearly like her more? All of this stuff. So we were both battling our own things but taking it out on each other. It reaches a conclusion though. It reaches like a breaking point after that fight where we say we hate each other and they realize there's not really going to be any mending with this relationship. We need to get Ellie a different bedroom. This is traumatizing to me because all of the families living on the top floor, there's the middle floor, and then there's the unfurnished basement. They build the smallest room possible in the unfurnished basement for me, away from all the family. I understand that that probably was the only solution, but to not be treated the same as the biological children in the house, to not be adopted, to only celebrate Ellie Day one time, and then to be like banished to the basement, to this like micro room, away from everybody else, I was like, no, I'm not investing anything in this family. No, absolutely no. Because I also knew at that time it was okay for me to be getting in fights. It was okay for me to be not acting normal. I should have been in therapy, but if we remember, I was given 1 therapy session. And because therapy was used to traumatize me when I was younger, I didn't say anything in that session and they never tried again. So I'm just trying to live with this trauma, trying to digest it myself, which was my form, just trying to move the fuck on from it so I didn't have to talk about it anymore. Or I didn't, because nobody really wanted to talk to me about it anyways. So I'm banished to this room in the basement. At the same time, I'm starting my first semester of high school with my sister upstairs. We're both the exact same age, right? So we're going to the same high school. Because this room had just happened, I realized this isn't it. I need to look for a connection elsewhere. And I start to make as many friends as possible, as many as I can. And I realize I have a lot more fun and I'm a lot happier when I'm with them. So I start to invest all my time in friendships. I never want to be home anymore. I'm asking them to drive me and drop me off at the mall. I'm showing up back like 2 days later. I just don't want to be around this family. I feel like everything that they're doing is like a visible, like we're having this invisible conversation there's these like constant micro expressions or mannerisms that are telling me that I'm not a part of the family. So like, for example, when we would walk in the door, my sister and I together after high school, my mom would greet my sister and say, "How was school? I love you so much. Tell me what's going on. Hi, Ellie." And it was the just remarkable difference. Like they already hated me. And I had only been there a few years. And there'd been fights, yes, but it always been, why are you attacking her? Why are you attacking her? And I would say, okay, but she is also a part in this. And doesn't matter the justification behind it because I have my own. We both are fighting. I'm not just attacking someone. So there's this clear separation between me and the rest of the family. So yes, I start investing in my relationships at school instead of my relationships within the family. And because I'm going to the same school as my sister, our relationships at school start to overlap. I start to get jealous of this. I want more friends. I don't actually really want to be around her at all because she's the symbol of everything I'm not. And regardless of who she is as a person, it's triggering to me. It's upsetting to me. And as a child, I don't want to put up with it. So I start getting really jealous of her friends and I want to keep them to myself. When they ask me to hang out, I don't want to invite her. I just want to have my own space. This is taken very, very poorly in the home. It's taken to another form of bullying against my sister, which if it had nothing to do with her, really, nothing to do with her. It's taken as another form of bullying towards my sister. So after one semester, I come into, for some reason the room is always dark when I'm getting talked to. I come into the dark living room and they say, sit down. I have an established friend group, by the way. Like, these are like my family. I'm considering them my family. Like, we tell each other everything. We Skype for like 6 hours a night, if you guys remember when that was a thing. They sit me down and they say, we're moving schools. We're moving you schools because of your relationship with Victoria. And I go, what? You're uprooting my life in one night? I'm never going back to school and I'm going to another school, mid-semester, grade 9, where I have to meet all new people? Okay, I don't get a choice. That was it. To rip me out of something that I was comfortable in, to completely tear up the roots that I had just built for myself the first time in my life. So I'll go over the next part after. I'm sent to a brand new school, mid-semester, pretty much downtown in the city. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 12. So I've just been moved schools mid-semester, traumatizing for a child that had just been abandoned, by the way. My foster mom is still in contact with me, but I'm kind of trying to separate from her because I realize of how much money she's stolen. I realize that she's kind of siphoning out of my grandma. Oh God. So I don't really want any connection to her. Also, I've changed my name, so I really don't want any connection to my old life at all. We know that I've just been removed from my high school. I'm about to go into a new high school, mid-semester, grade 9. I'm also about to move houses. So we were in this child home, like I told you about. It's like carpeted floors, like perfect for raising children. The last story I want to tell you there, though, is one day we get a knock on the door. It's been a couple years since I've been abandoned. I'm in high school right now, so I want to say 14 years old. Knock on the door, we open it. There's an older man standing there, white hair, kind of larger. I recognize him, but I don't know from where. He says, can I come in and sit down? He says my old name. I go, where do I know you from? He sits down to let me know that he was the man that picked me up on the day that I was abandoned at school. He was the man with the red truck that drove me to my foster family and left me there and never checked on me again. He was the man that did no research into my foster family to see where he was taking me, which thus allowed all of my trust fund, which I use that loosely, all of my money cushion to start a life as an orphan, he let that be taken from me. But that's this man. And he's here to grovel for an apology so he can feel better about himself. So he's sitting in our living room. He's telling me how sorry he is, how harrowed he is by the fact that he took that young girl to that place, the fact that he didn't ask me on the ride how I was, the fact that it was so close to my original family, all of this stuff. And I'm just looking at him like, the fact that I said, what would I do with money when I was accused of stealing money, even though I had stolen it? Well, he sits there and he's trying to clear his conscience by telling me how apologetic he is. And I'm just looking at him like, well, what are we gonna do now? Like, what? I don't think about this enough to even know if I'm ready to forgive you, so I'm a little bit cold, and you'll recognize this in the stories going on. I harden. I turn into the opposite version of what I am today. Like, if today is compassionate, kind, empathetic, and loving towards people, I was the exact opposite. And I'm gonna tell you everything because this is what trauma does to people. This is what it does. This is the reality of it. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. Anyway, so he's sitting there. I don't forgive him. I don't really say anything. I let him say his piece and then go, okay. And then I let him leave. So anyways, after this instant, we move houses. It's just down the street. We're not going far, but we're going to like a more teenage kid home. And we're moving in with the grandparents of this family, because I mentioned the mother of this family has a chronic disease, like autoimmune disease. I'm skipping over my words, but it's scleroderma. So it's life-threatening, and it was inevitable. Her life sentence, she got diagnosed when she was 18 years old, and then she was given, I believe it was 7 to 10 years to live, and that she would never have children. So she had 3 children, and they're all perfect. There's nothing wrong with them, even though there was like some concerns that this disease would cause issues in the children, but it didn't. But she said one day when we were driving that she, just privately to me, she said that she'd always wanted 4 children. She even bought like 4 stocking hangers, and that I could be that 4th child. And I felt really good in that moment, but that was the only kind of maternal connection that we had. Like, it didn't really extend beyond that moment. I think that was her last effort, and I didn't know how to receive it, so because I'd never received that before, but she never really tried again after that. I think like when you're struggling with that kind of illness and you already have 2 teenagers and a younger child as well, and then now this new one, your main focus isn't going to be the new one, it's going to be your biological children, which is why they never should have brought me in the first place. But whatever. So we moved to this new home, also for support from the grandparents, so that the mother could function day to day normally. Like, she wasn't like bedridden. Sometimes she was, but you know, like still. So we move into this new house. I really am starting to get so bitter and so cold. After this night where I'm told that I moved to a new high school, and paired with the fact that I moved to a basement bedroom away from everybody else that they built to get me away from the rest of the family, I'm detached. I don't want to be a part of this family at all anymore, because you guys don't want me, and I'm not gonna go back to when I was younger, doing absolutely anything I could to get a mother that didn't love me to love me. I'm not redoing that. And if you guys don't give a fuck what happened to me in my childhood, why the hell would I invest in you? I'm operating kind of fine. Day to day is kind of fine. And it's shocking to me because, like, sometimes the friends that knew that I went through some like crazy stuff, I never went into detail with what I went through. I mostly just said like, oh yeah, I was pretty hit as a kid. But the people that knew what I went through, I'd be like, are you okay? Like, do you not feel like upset by this? And I'd be like, no. Isn't that weird? I feel totally fine. I felt totally fine. Every couple of weeks, I would have a massive breakdown and sit and write out pages of a book and like scream right for like 10 minutes and then rip it up and be like, what was that? And then I wouldn't feel it again for like 2 or 3 weeks. I was really good at pushing down those emotions. So I'm starting my first day of high school, again, 2nd semester, because I moved schools. I realize this school is much, much better than my original school because these aren't all cowboys. And I come from a farm and I'm ready to get as far away from a farm as possible. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's my place of trauma. So I don't really want to be around a bunch of cowboys. So I'm in the city now. These kids are dressing up for school. This is the Pretty Little Liars era, so heels are clacking around. I'm like, oh, jackpot. I sit down upstairs in the library on my first day. I've already made a couple friends. They're sitting with me. I, on the first day, get a boyfriend. He turns out to be gay, so don't worry. The first day I get a boyfriend, we're sitting in the library, and apparently he goes downstairs and he grabs my wife, my future wife, and he says, you have to meet this new girl. She's a model. I did a makeup ad on a website. I wasn't a model. You have to meet her. She's a model. Come upstairs. Come to the library. She's sitting in there. So he drags my wife upstairs to meet me, and I respond to her. Sorry. I posted a full story time about my wife, but I respond to her by going, hi, I'm Ellie. And she's like, oh, hi, okay. I don't think she wants to meet me, so she kind of leaves. And this is kind of the persona that I took on at this new school because nobody knew me. Nobody was gonna go home and report to me or report to the parents about what I was doing, which is what the daughter was doing. She was reporting on me, and she still did. She found connections at my new high school and she reported everything I did to the parents. Anyways, but I realized no one around here knows me. I'm by myself. I can be whoever I want. And who do I want to be? I want to be impenetrable. I want to be a stone cold bitch. And the people that I do let in my circle will be very small and very cool. I want to have a cool life. I want to do cool things, and I want to drink, and I want to go to parties, and I want to have a movie high school experience. And that's exactly what I set myself up for. Exactly what I set myself up for. I walk through the halls like this. I pick out a few girls. They're already friends with each other, and I think I would be really good in this friend group. I don't know where I get this confidence. I would be really good in this friend group. I want to be a part of their friend group. So I introduce myself. They later on tell me that they were scared to talk to me because they thought I was a bitch. But when I came up, they were like, oh, you're actually nice. Okay, we'll be your friend. They are my friends for all of high school. One of them I actually moved to university with. I chose my friends on the first day, never changed my mind. I also met my wife on the first day, never changed my mind about that either. Very steadfast person. Me and this group of girls get up to some shit. Alcohol, parties, boys, and unresolved trauma, that leads to a whole lack of things. So I'm gonna get into that next. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 13. Every day from high school, I'm being shown how much this family does not want me around, and it's in subtle things. So I come home from school, I walk in, I'm being greeted very different from the other children. They're getting hugs, they're getting I love yous, they're getting how was your days? I'm getting hi, no question. So I leave. I wait for the other kid to start speaking, and I head down to my room. I'm a room kid, I don't come out of my room. When I'm called up for supper, if you remember from my childhood, they used to build barriers between me and the rest of the family so that they wouldn't have to look at me during supper, and I would get fed something different than them so they didn't even have to share food with me. So when I'm called up to family suppers for the first time in my life, I don't know how to act. And when I start to feel like this family doesn't like me at all, I go nonverbal. And I don't mean like, oh, like I went quiet. No, I couldn't speak. I would try and I couldn't speak. It was like my throat was on fire. It was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And it was like stuck in my throat and I couldn't make a sound. So they would call me up to dinner and they would say randomly, it's your turn for grace. I don't know how to say a prayer. I'm fully nonverbal at this moment, so I would just go like this. And I'm not being dramatic. Like, I couldn't speak. And when I couldn't do it, I would just sit down and I would turn my back to the rest of them and I would put my head down because that's what I was used to. No one would say anything about it. They would just carry on their regular dinner. And then this was confirmation for me that, okay, like you guys really don't care about me at all because not only am I doing this because this is what I'm used to, I'm also doing it for a little bit of attention, like to see maybe I'm testing the limits to see what you guys will do because this is how I'm reacting. Are you gonna help me? And the answer was always no. So I'm bitter. I'm angry towards them. I'm an angry teenager at this point with unresolved trauma, okay? I'm getting in trouble constantly because my sister's reporting on the things that I'm doing. And this is like, I haven't even done anything bad yet. This is like, I didn't tell them that I was gonna go get a cookie at Starbucks before I got on the bus type of stuff. Which, why would I have to report that? I still don't understand that. Also, I'm not your daughter. So you obviously don't want me as your daughter, so why are you mandating these things that I do? Or like monitoring, the things that I do. Anyways, so I really find my calling at school, I really do. Because at home is really tough, dinner time sucks, I never want to be there. I'm getting sat down for conversations to get in trouble about the things that I'm doing. I'm fully nonverbal in the conversations as well, by the way. Like I can't speak and they would just look at me like, why aren't you speaking? Why aren't you speaking? And tears rolling down my eyes, like crying in pain. And I would just wait until I could go back to my room again. That would result in me like scream crying, writing down what I'm feeling and ripping it out and then never thinking about it again for a couple weeks when the cycle repeated. These girls at school that I made friends with, they're good people, but all of us, looking back, had come from a little piece of our own trauma and we were all livid about it. Livid. Like disruptive, disorderly teenager livid. So we found peace and happiness in doing things that were wrong. Like we Like, for example, the classic teenage experience, you go to parties, you drink, like maybe you try weed for the first time, that kind of stuff. Not us. Not us. Those like classic high school parties, we would go sometimes, but they weren't exactly what we were looking for. We were looking for something that was a little more on the edge, that would make us feel alive, that would get our adrenaline pumping, that would give us control over the bad things that happened to us. That is key. That is why we were doing this. That's why all of us were on board. Because if something bad, well, I did it to myself. It's not someone else doing it to me. It's control. It's control over what happens. We start hanging out with drug dealers. Because one, it is lighting our soul on fire. We are pumping adrenaline like we have never pumped before. Keep in mind, I'm not talking hard drugs. I'm talking like weed, like high school drug dealers. We start smoking cigarettes for fun. We start drinking way more than we should. And we realize we love it. We love it. We love the escape that we feel. We love telling each other the stories of what happened the night before. We love getting ready. At 16, we also realized we love going to the club. Absolutely love it. We find some older guys, this will be a theme. We find some older guys who agreed, they're bouncers at the club, who agreed to let us in the back door. And then if we come a couple hours early, like before the club opened, when the club opened, we'll just mesh in with the crowd. And when I tell you everything was like in sync for us in this time, we were rolling, we were running away from our trauma like nothing else. We would go into the club 2 hours early. I remember one day we went with no alcohol and $0 in our pocket. And we're like, we'll figure something out. Like someone will buy us drinks. We walk into the empty club and sitting there on the ground is a $50 bill. And at that time, like this is 13 years ago. So at that time, that was like, okay, we're getting drunk tonight. So we put it in our pocket and we just sit and wait for the club to open. Club opens, we start partying. We head to the bottle booth, guys. Oh, I wish I could share. I think I can. Actually, I'm not going to. I was going to share a photo, but there's other girls in it and I'm not going to do that. But we head to the bottle service, guys. We realize that a certain type of character really gets the attention of men and all of us know how to play it. I'm gay, by the way. So I don't really know why I'm doing this because, well, actually, attention. Anyways, so we're getting attention from the bottle service guys. We're drinking their alcohol. We're using our $50 bills. This is pretty much like how our weekends are going. And then at school, we're skipping class. We don't drink or anything at school like that. But we're like skipping class. We're going to the mall. We have this activity called like going lifting, which we would just go to the mall and take the things that we wanted. It got so bad at a certain point that the police car started following me and my friend around, and we're like, okay, we have to stop this. It was like anything to get our blood pumping, even if it was illegal. And we had no remorse. Like we were just so shut off. We feel like we deserved these things. Does that make sense? Like it's really low energy, and I know it's bad, but I'm telling you, this is what happens. Her and I, my best friend, we both have very weird relationships with men. Very weird. I won't speak on her because that's her own individual life, but she has an issue with men. And so do I. So do I, because I have never had a presence of a healthy male in my home. He's only just ignored me. Like, as you know, my dad didn't speak to me at all when I was a child. So I have a weird relationship with men. I also like crave their attention because I never got it. And we know that my response to everything is pretty much fawning. Well, so is my friend. So we're kind of like amping each other up. We're like, let's get some boyfriends around here, you know? Like, when we go out to the club, we're like, let's meet some boys. And almost 9 times out of 10, these boys would be older boys. Because as we know, older boys prey on younger women. And these boys were like in their 20s, and this all starts when we're like 16. Like they're like mid-20s and we're like 16 years old. So we're meeting them at the club. We're going back to their house after, like we know that I have some issues with like a history with these teenage boys that used to bring me into the basement. So what's happening and how me and my friend are interacting with these boys is not anything new to me. This is like what happens. This is what people do. So I'm not feeling good about it, but I'm doing it because this is what high schoolers do. So there's a turning point when one of our friends offers us her house to have a house party. This is where my relationship with men takes a terrible turn and starts to turn into a really bad trauma, like really bad trauma. So she offers up her house for a house party. Me and my best friend, who, nightmares, you really shouldn't offer that to us because we didn't have any respect for anybody at that time. I do now, but we really did not then. So they offer up the house to us. We invite everybody we know. We invite the next grade up. We invite everybody. She says, I'll join the party when I get home from work. She joins to a much bigger party than she expected. There's a group of boys there, popular boys, if you would say, and I had my eye on one of them, but I'm gonna go into that next time. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 14. So right now we're at a high school party. We threw at our friend's house. It's me and my best friend, and we threw it with our other friend. She's just joining after work. She's realizing this party's a lot bigger than I expected. Her dad's also a police officer, so she's like worried about that. We did something wrong, not her. I have no respect for myself. I'm acting completely insane, and I will for the next 10 years. This is like a decade cycle where I act wild. I have a stunted relationship with men. I have no idea how I'm supposed to be treated. And I think the only thing they want from me is sex. And it's proved right. That really is all they want. So I still now don't like men. I have a really deep mistrust with men. So we're at this party. There's a friend of ours. Keep in mind, I've had a boyfriend before we broke up because I smoked a cigarette and he was like super upset about it. No big deal. I lost my virginity to him. It was fine. Like, it was a nice story. It was nothing bad. It was like a classic teenage story. It's after that things start to happen that are bad. So at this party, I'm craving attention, like absolutely craving attention. And the easiest way to get it is through men because men are so easy. They really are. A friend comes up to me and he lets me know that he's interested in me. And I'm like, okay, like, sure, let's do it. Because I thought that's what I was supposed to say. I didn't really know that I had another option because my whole life I didn't have another option. So we start doing that. I get up and I leave because I'm like, this sucks. This is terrible. I have no shame in that, no problem. I'm also gay, so I'm not really sure why I'm acting the way I'm acting, but I definitely don't feel good about it. I definitely don't. I start to go and drink like a couple shots, like pretty heavily. And there's this guy there that I had like kind of a crush on. He's like a grade above and he was like from the popular crowd. And I actually did have a crush on him. So maybe I'm not a lesbian. I don't know. I'm still working through that. He starts looking at me. We take some shots together. There's like this beer pong table that used to be passed around in our school. That's there. If you know, it was kind of iconic for us, and we were super excited that the table was there because we love beer pong. So I'm starting to play beer pong. Things start to go fuzzy for me though, because I'm new to drinking. And I'm like, oh wow, I'm getting like kind of drunk, but I don't know my limit, so I just keep drinking. Then there's like 3 black hours, like totally black. And I wake up in a car, in the backseat of a car with this guy. And I think you can imagine what was happening. And again, I get up and I walk out and I can't put the right words in my mind at that time. I blamed myself. I was like, oh, like, this is you. This is what you do. Like, this is who you are. You're just an easy person. I couldn't understand what it was at the time. I can understand now. But the implication of what happened in that car shifted. It took away my last sense of self-respect. And it made me lose all hope in humanity. Like, this is really all. People just want to hurt me. They want to hurt me. And so I'll take control of that and I'll just always say yes. Because if I say yes, then I'm going along with it. I'm not saying no and they're doing it anyways because they will. So I might as well just say yes and have that sort of freedom, you know? So that shifts my mentality because of this guy, this one guy. And keep in mind, I have to face him in school after. And this is the era that you can do that to a woman and go to school the next day and tell everybody that you slept together. and everybody will congratulate you and shame the woman. So that goes on. That happens. But as we know, I have my hard exterior. So I look like I'm not being bothered by this at all. People kind of think that's cool. They're like, oh wow, like unfazed. My friends think it's cool for sure. At home, I'm distraught every once in a while. And then I would push it all back down and I would go back to school again. And every weekend we would repeat the same cycle where we would go to parties, we would drink. Like, it wasn't always like that every single weekend. We would drink, we would get up to some stuff, we would like steal things during the week, anything to just make us feel alive. And also at this time, I'm never at home. I pretty much live at my best friend's house. She knows that something's really off at home. She doesn't have a very good style of communicating or asking about these things, but she knows, and there's this underlying thing that we both know, that I can't be at home. There's a pinnacle in my high school experience where I meet one person who makes me angry like never before. It starts in the high school library, which it's so funny that I keep bringing up this library, but there was beanbags there, and it was like a really fun place to hang out during lunch. Not cool, but fun. So I'm sitting in the library. I'm just chilling with my group of friends. We have like our cookies because our school sold amazing cookies. There's a few people from high school that follow me on here, and they probably know what I'm talking about. So we're sitting in the library, and I see this kid who I've never seen before. And he's sitting by himself. His shoulders are curled in, his head is down, and my empathy is just shot, like stab in the heart. I'm like, oh my God, being alone is so terrible. I know what that feels like. It's so terrible. And I'm not gonna sit here on the sidelines and watch you be alone, so I'm gonna be your friend. So I went up to him and I said, who are you? And he said, this is my name. And I said, why are you alone? Like, you don't have to be alone, you can sit with me. And he didn't really say much. And he asked for my phone number. So I gave him my phone number, and he texted me and said, I'm shy, I'm nervous. But I'm standing right in front of him, and I'm like, stop, just stop, it's fine, we can be friends, it's no problem, I'm not gonna bully you, like, we can hang out. And he responds and says that no one's ever been that kind to him before, and people normally just ignore him. Gets me, he's hooked me. I tell him I'll be his friend, we start texting. He has a really hard time actually speaking, so most of the time when we're together, like in the hallways or something, he'll text me what he's thinking, and I'll respond out loud. And I just kind of thought he had like a sensory issue, like he just had a hard time talking. No one else wanted to be around him in school, by the way. So anyways, our relationship develops, we become friends, I become his only friend. Every once in a while, some girls would come up to me and be like, this person that you're hanging around with, he sent me some really weird messages. And I'd be like, oh, like what kind of messages? And they'd be like, oh, pictures of his penis. And I would look, and it wouldn't be just one or two, it'd be like 30, like in a row, with no like hello, nothing, like no previous conversation, none of the girls being like, oh yeah, I want to see, you know, because who cares about that if it's that, but it's not. And every so often they would come up and say that, and I would go up to him and I'd be like, why are you sending these photos to these women? And he'd say, no, every single time they wanted it. Every single time. These people are lying, they're bashing on me. And I'm like, I know what that's like, man. I know what that's like when people make up these fake stories because you're so nice to me. You've never done that to me. Terrible, right? Terrible that I would do that. You would never do that to me, so I believe him. I'm like, you're being shit on by the world just like me. He's smart though. He lets a couple years go by before he shifts his attention towards me. It was about actually probably a year and a half until I opened my phone and I looked down and there's about 30 messages, 30 picture messages of, guess what? His penis. So I can't respond normally because I'm a fawner. I also know that saying no won't stop anything, so I just kind of ignore it. And that to him is a yes signal. So in the next part, I'm gonna go over my high school stalker. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 15, my high school stalker. So we met him in the school library. We've been friends with him for a year. A couple of girls have raised some suspicions about him, about the pictures he's been sending, but you've justified it every single time because you think people are making it up about him because he's kind of viciously bullied at school. You're on his side when you should not have been. So he builds your trust. After a year, you start receiving messages from him. They include pictures of him, you know, but you don't respond because I had no relationship with men. I had no idea what I deserved. And I was a fawner and I knew that they would take what they wanted from me anyways. So I kind of just went along with it every single time. So he knows this about me. He knows that I won't say no. He knows that I will stay around him because the attention was something that I needed. This is the first couple times I'm getting male validation in my life, and I'm starting to get addicted to it. And I really do mean addicted. Things get fucking weird with this kid though. They get weird. They go beyond photos. So I wear an exclusive perfume, only one perfume in high school. It's the Guess, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's like brown and black, like a Guess bottle, and it's brown and black. I only wear that. One day I wake up and I look and my bottle is empty and I'm like, oh, that's too bad. So I don't spray myself that day because I ran out of perfume. I come home, keep in mind, I'm not talking to people about this perfume. Like the only person that would know is my best friend, and she doesn't communicate with this guy, okay? I come home from school the same day, sitting on my bed inside of my room of my locked house is a brand new box of that perfume. He knew the perfume that I wore based on the smell. He found it, he bought it for me, he broke into my home, and he put it on my bed. This happened again when my laptop charger broke. It broke randomly at home. I told nobody. I came home and there was a new one sitting on my bed. I checked in with everybody in the house. No one had bought these things for me. It was him because I asked him, did you buy this? And he said yes. I'm a little bit creeped out. I'm telling my friends I'm creeped out, but I'm not distancing myself from him. He used to pick me up and we used to go for rides together in his truck because he comes from like kind of a richer family and he had a really nice truck and we would just drive kind of around the city. One night things got weird. So he took me on this back road and he put the pedal straight down to the ground and he went as fast as he could with the headlights off down the road in the middle of the night. It was like midnight and it was like some back country road, like really, really scary. He went so fast that the lid started smoking, like what I don't know much about cars, but the hood of the car started smoking and it went and it shut down. So we had to pop the lid. He put the belt back on. Does that make sense? I don't know what that means. Closed it and then drove around the mouth of the road again so he could do it again, like drive again. I'm screaming. I'm genuinely screaming. Please no, stop, 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 stop. He stops the car on the side. Kind of hits me against the window. And I think we can assume what happens next. And this is, my fear is so high in this moment. Because, let me have a sip of my coffee. My fear is so high in this moment because I feel like he's just tried to kill me in this car. I really think he did. And now I'm being attacked. I'm being like sexually attacked. So when he drops me off back at home, I tell the parents of the family that I'm with. They drive me immediately to the hospital where I'm put through like, I don't know if you guys have been through it, but it's traumatizing. The like sexual assaults center where you have to like take off all your clothes. They take photos of your body. They take photos of the bruises, the back of your head. They do a very intimate exam. They put you in like different clothing and stuff. It lasts hours. It's all very cold, very clinical, very brightly lit, very traumatizing. They're told that, I'm told that we're gonna get lawyers and we're gonna attack this. And I'm like, okay, like justice, right? Because that was fucking crazy. That was too far. I have my friends over that night. One of my friends, who's like a social justice warrior, like very outspoken, I told her not to contact him, but she did because she was so angry and she screamed at him and he said, I know I did this. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He admits it over the phone, on the phone call, okay? This is very important. We go to the lawyers. I tell them everything that happened. I have a full statement with the police. It goes on my file. I tell them what happened. The lawyer sits us down and says, you know, even though there's photos, even though there's a phone call somewhere in the ether about him admitting it, and text messages that you have from him admitting it, we can't do anything really. He's probably not going to get charged. What's really going to happen is you're going to sit in court in front of a bunch of people and explain in detail what happened to you, and then nothing will happen. So I say, okay, let's just drop it then. Let's just drop it and do a restraining order. We get a restraining order. I'm sent away to Florida for a week to kind of recoup. When I come back, the whole school's talking about it because he's telling everyone that we had a very collaborative experience, if you will. The whole school believes him. My friends believe me, except one of them. Bitch. Anyways, I kind of just go back to living as normal. But this experience of almost dying in someone's car and then getting attacked like that, it's kind of like, just, this is the second time this has happened in school already. Like, this is crazy. Women are so attacked, especially vulnerable women. A couple instances before this like climax of our relationship, there were times where we would sit in the backyard of my house and I would look over and he would be standing in one of the bushes. Like, he had let himself into the backyard of my house and he had been there the whole time. He went in, I told you he went into my house to drop off perfumes and things like that. I also used to look out the window at any given time during the day and he would be sitting outside of my house in his truck. One time he drove me and my friends around in the bed of his truck and he went the full speed limit and we started crying because, again, we really thought we were gonna die because we were going 200 kilometers an hour down the road in an open bed of a truck and bouncing. It was so scary. So he was very like life-threatening. Anyway, so after this big event happens, I go to the principal and I'm pretty much like, what are you gonna do about this? Because am I gonna have to go to school with him now? Like, after I'm back from Florida, am I gonna have to go to school with him? There's nothing I can do. I have a restraining order. They offer me the option to switch schools. I say no. And they say because he wasn't convicted of anything, we can't do anything. So I say, okay, well, let's fucking get some dirt on him then. So I go and I find the 30, 40 unsolicited text messages that I have of him. And I collect a bunch of other girls who also have that. Keep in mind, those pictures, sending around those pictures, it's considered child pornography. So we go to the principal, we show the principal everything. He gets taken out of school in handcuffs. Oof. What a win. Am I right? What a win. Doesn't end there. He switches school of his own will because it's too bad for him to return. And what school does he pick? There's tons of schools in this district, by the way. There's one even like a 10-minute drive from our original high school that he could have gone to. Nope. He picks the one in the country that my sister goes to. The only school that's outside of the city, the farthest away from where he lives, he picks that one. And he graduates with my sister. And he doesn't actually leave my life for years until now. Still now. I started posting on TikTok and I looked and I have a follow request from him. I blocked him. He pops up. I still actually, for years and years after our relationship, I still received messages from women saying, do you know him? Something is very off with this guy. Something's very different about him. And I still actually battle with my relationship with him because for so long that I thought that I was to blame because I got in the car that night and I knew the kind of person he was, but I'm not to blame. But yeah, I think he stalked me for a lot longer after that, but those are just the instances I know. But we're gonna go further into my traumatizing teen years. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 16. So I just went over my high school stalker, but I want to take you back inside the house because at the same time that this stuff is going on, some very interesting things are shifting inside the home. So we know I don't really fit in with this family. It's safe to say that I have my own issues. They were expecting something else. There was one point where they actually said they were hoping I was acting more like Orphan Annie and I would be more grateful to the situation. But I had just been through too much complex trauma that I couldn't relate to them, and I couldn't really involve myself in their family unit. So they're pushing me away, I'm pulling myself away. It's like two opposite magnets. We're very distant. The thing that really shifts though is the health of the mother. So I mentioned before that she had a autoimmune disease. This is life-threatening, and she was given a life sentence when she got diagnosed with the disease, and she had already passed it. Things were getting very, very worse very quickly with her health, and she was in need of a double lung transplant and stem cell transplant, I believe, also. And this was going to be in Chicago. So we needed to raise money because the doctor that was going to do the surgery in Chicago was not going to be covered by the Canadian healthcare system. So let's say it was going to be like around $100,000. We had to do some fundraising in the community. So I had my idea that I was going to show them how much I loved them by going and getting the fundraising done quickly with my sister at the time. And that way they could just relax and they wouldn't have to do any fundraising. So I asked her if she wanted to go door to door with me, and I got a little Ziploc bag and I went door to door, told them our cause. And because it was like a cul-de-sac, like neighborhood situation, everybody knew the situation already, and they were eager to give money. So we collected like $500, I think, which looking back is not that much. And the fundraiser that was going to happen was going to bring in a lot more money. I understand that. But I brought the money back in a bag and I told them what I had done. And I got in so much trouble because I had stepped in the way of their fundraiser. And I get that now, but also at the same time, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I really can't do anything right in this family. And I was just livid. I was like, why even include me in this in the first place if there's like little steps that I'm supposed to take that I don't know? Like, I feel like I'm a child again, you know? So I'm kind of angry at the situation. Double lung transplant comes around. Double lung transplant comes around, and the mother in this family has to move to Chicago for 6 months. We're asked to make her homemade gifts that she can open while she's in Chicago. I'm like, no problem, I can do this. I make a full book. I draw like art in it. I draw like a world to show how far away from each other we're gonna be. And although I'm really actively pulling away from this family, there's still a huge part of me that wants to be accepted by them and a huge part of me that wants to be loved by them. And that's why it comes through in these like gift scenarios where I can kind of show them how much I love them. Anyway, so I make my whole book. We drive down to Chicago. It's kind of a horrible road trip, by the way, because I'm getting in constant fights with the siblings that are in the car because I kind of hate them at this time in my life. I hate how easily they're loved and how different I am from them. So I'm picking fights with them. So the whole trip is just kind of a nightmare. We get to Chicago. We have a couple good moments like with the family at like the aquarium, getting deep dish pizza, like classic tourist things. And then when we go to leave, I hand over my book. I never receive a message about it. I never get a thank you. I never get a thank you for putting this effort in. It's almost like I just dropped the book into the ether. As I'm saying goodbye though, I say, I really don't want you to leave. Because in my mind, leaving was Chicago. And the response was, I'm not the one leaving. And I was like, it's like every single interaction with these people is like, I'm saying the wrong thing, or like some subliminal message, or like, I'm not the one leaving, you are. Like, come on, you know what I'm saying. So I'm just exhausted. I'm so exhausted with this family. But I've built a really good group of friends at school, and these people are my relief. It's the same group of friends I told you about in a couple parts ago. I met them on like the first day, and I never left their side. I start spending all of my time with them. And because the mother of this family is away in Chicago, I'm not being monitored as much because the dad is off at work all day, and the grandparents that live with us are also super busy, so they don't really see when I come home or leave, and I am free. I'm writing in my journal, like, I'm having the best experiences of my life. Looking back, they really weren't the best experience of my life, but I felt like I had full control, full freedom, no one checking in on me, no one bothering me anymore. So I write in my journal one day. I had no thought about relating this to her disease or what she was going through. I just said, I hope she doesn't come back one day. And I didn't mean it in the way that it was taken later on when someone read my diary. It was, I don't really want a mother in the house because it causes me so much anxiety. And when the mother figure is removed, I feel so much better. And that was a digestion of my trauma that I didn't understand. And it came out in a way that made me look like a monster. I didn't write in my journal, I hope she dies. I hope this transplant isn't good. I just hope that she doesn't come back, because I'm a lot happier now, because there was so much anger between the two of us, and she really didn't like me. Like, anyways, so she comes back 6 months later, successful lung transplant, this was not the lung transplant, this was the stem cell transplant. Lung transplants later on. And she's fine for a bit. We go away the kids and I go away to a cottage with all of our cousins for a bit. And I'm asked to come out of the house of the cottage. And I look, and both of the parents of the family are sitting in the driveway staring at me. When I was gone, they had opened my journal and read my journal. Which, keep in mind, in my journal, I was writing things that happened to me in my original home. I was writing what happened to me with my high school stalker. I was writing who the fuck was my mother? Part 17. So high school's ending for me. I've already met my wife, but I don't know she's my wife yet, funnily enough. I've got a restraining order with my high school stalker, and I'm at the last pages of my story with this family that I'm living with. I have plans to go to university with my best friend of all time, and we're gonna go to the big city. We're gonna go to Toronto, and we're gonna get away from everybody, and we're gonna have the best time ever, and we're both gonna take the exact same course so that we can take all of our classes together. Graduation rolls around. I graduate, no problem at all. And I start to pack up for university. I sit down with the family and I let them know I'm really gonna miss them. This is like my last chance to kind of connect with them. And I'm like, I'm kind of scared. I'm kind of scared to leave you guys. I'm scared to go out on my own. And it's kind of this nice moment we have where I'm like, oh, maybe we will have a relationship once I'm out of the house. It's like kind of sweet. A couple weeks before we're about to go to university, my best friend and I go to this little party. It's about 10 people. My best friend is like, I'm gonna drink tonight, but she drove the car. So she's like, can you drive it home in the morning if I'm still drunk? And I was like, I guess so, yeah, but I didn't have a license. It was a really stupid idea to say yes, but I was like, yeah, sure, like I can do it. Like if you're still drunk in the morning, I can take the car home. She drinks that night. I don't. This is a common misconception that everyone had about me, is that I was always drunk in high school, and I wasn't. I truly wasn't. I was mostly sober when I was at these parties. A lot of times I was a sober driver without a license. I know that's bad. Anyway, so she ends up, her and everybody else at this party end up drinking quite a bit. The next morning rolls around and she comes up to me at like 4 a.m. She doesn't want to be there anymore. One of the guys is kind of being creepy. She wants to get away from him. She's like, can you drive home? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. I put her and my girlfriend at the time into the back of the car and I start to drive them home. I'm a terrible driver. Keep in mind, I have not been drinking. This is another common misconception with this story. I have not been drinking. I'm driving the car. My best friend says, can we go and look at my ex-boyfriend's house? Because this is not creepy. This is a thing that people used to do at this time. You used to do to like drive-bys and see if they were home. So I was like, yeah, okay, like we can do a drive-by because it's right by your house, so no problem. We're driving and she says, that's the left, as we're passing it. And I don't understand the mechanics of a car, and I'm stupid as hell at this time. Like, this is the dumbest, like, Tana Mojo story. I crank the car to the left, smash it right into a pole. The girl in the back smacks against the back seat. She's fine, though. The car is actually totaled. My friend who had bought in a sub the sub had smashed all over the window, and she looks at me and goes, oh, my sub. You joking? The car, though, wrecked. I was like, oh, I don't think we can drive this home. It's like smoking. I also didn't realize that you're not allowed to move a vehicle after a crash. So I start to drive the car out and I get it as far as it can go, which is into the parking lot of a church. And I was like, I guess we're just gonna have to take a taxi home. And my friend's like, yeah, I guess we'll have to take a taxi. And then we'll just figure out what to do about this smashed car later on after a nap because we're tired. Teenagers. So we take a taxi home. No one was hurt, by the way. No one was even close to being hurt. We take a taxi back to her house and we take a nap immediately. We say nothing about the car. We get into bed and we take a nap. A knock on the door comes. We hear someone answer it. And then a big old knock comes on the door that we're all napping in. My best friend's mom, who is also kind of like my mom because I was always there, is like, what did you girls do? What did you do? We go to the door. It's the police. We're standing there and I'm like, I was the one driving. I was not drinking. I drove without a license. We had to leave a scenario because there was someone that was being super creepy. We should have called a taxi, but this is what we did and I don't know how to drive, so I smashed the car. They immediately think we're lying. Immediately, because my friend is visibly drunk. She does have a license. It's her car. I'm not drunk. I am admitting that it's me, but it looks like I'm taking the blame for someone that was drinking and driving. They sit there and they go, tell us the truth. And we go, that is the truth. It's the truth. I swear on my life. So I go out privately with a police officer and I let him know the whole thing. Like, there was a creepy guy. We had to get away from there. I wanted to help my friend. I was the one that took the car because she was drinking and we were trying to be safer, but I don't know anything about cars and that's why we got in an accident. We didn't know that moving it was also a crime. We've committed 2 crimes. We don't know that moving it is also a crime. So it was like a bunch of mistakes we made in a row. And I was completely honest with him and said, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I got myself in this position. He pulls up my case file, or that's not the right word. He pulls up, like, you know, his big clunky police officer laptop, types my name in. By the grace of God, what pops up is my experience with my high school stalker and what had happened with him. The police officer takes pity on me for this situation, recognizes that this reckless behavior is probably tied to this event because it was like a month or 2 months prior, I'm not sure. Completely let off the hook. Completely. And I 100% know that has to do with how I present. I 100% know that. But it also was because of what was on my file. So I get let off the hook. I get charged with a $300 wrongful left turn ticket. That's it. I just have to pay $300 and all of this will go away, and it did go away. As you can imagine, the family was very disappointed in me when I returned and they had found out that I had smashed a car. Because also that night that I told you about the party that we threw at our friend's house, the police also came to that. And my parents at the time found out because the police found out where I lived and showed up in my backyard telling them. So they've had 2 interactions with the police. Maybe I was kind of a nightmare kid. Keep in mind, I did this when I was 17. So all before then I was kind of normal, and then I just kind of went off the rails at 17. And that's going to be a theme going forward. And I think you guys know enough about me already, but you're really going to get to know what happened to me after I leave my last family and I'm kind of free and alone in the world. And you're going to be like, free to make your judgments of me, because I made some terrible choices. And if you don't already know that by this story, things are going to get a little bit worse and ramp up a little bit more. I'll go into that in the next part. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 18. So we've just crashed a car and now we're going off to university. I had a little bit of a chunk of money saved for university, but I paid for my friend's car to be fixed. And she also paid, like, we went in together because it was her brother's car at the end of the day. So we had to take out a lot of our money from our university fund, which meant we were living in a very unappealing apartment. So we moved to what we think to be Toronto, but it's actually not Toronto. It's an outskirts town and kind of like a dingy area in the outskirts of this town. Anyways, we kind of roll with it because we're like, the bus still connects us to the downtown. Also, we're free. We have our first house. It's no problem. We find a basement apartment for $400 each for it's like a 500 square foot basement. And then there's other levels and we'll have other roommates and share the kitchen and everything. But we have our own bathroom. So we're like, $400 each. We can definitely afford that, especially now that we've wasted all our money replacing a car that we smashed. We lock it in. This room is painted mustard yellow and someone had taken a paintbrush and did hot pink splatters all over it. And we're like, okay, first act of business, we're just gonna scrape everything and repaint the walls millennial gray. And then we went to IKEA and we bought all millennial gray items So our room was just stark white, and we loved, this is our Grey's Anatomy era. So we loved the sterile look, and we're like, this is amazing. This room's gonna be awesome. Let's party. We go to university. We're not really making as many friends as we would like because we're very removed from the like dorm style living, and that's where everyone's parties were and everyone's friend groups were. My friend is a lot more popular than me because she's a lot more approachable than me. As I let you guys know, I put on this like hardened exterior when I was younger, so I had like a tough shell, and I was like very often perceived as a bitch before I was perceived as nice because I wouldn't let people in, you know. First night of our living in our house, we I don't know if you guys would know this, but it's an app called Yik Yak, where you could just anonymously post things out into the world and then people in like your area could see it. Well, we sent out a Yik Yak that we were having a party, and we sent out our address because we had no internet safety at this time. Hundreds of people show up. Hundreds. And we're not scared at all. We're actually super, super excited because she comes from a little bit of a strange family. So do I. And we both just want control, adrenaline, and freedom in our life. And we also are on track to make a ton of bad decisions, and we're fine with it. So the party's in rearing full speed. Everyone's here. People are throwing up on the ground, and we're like, this is university, just like the movies. This is incredible. I'm elated. We get news from someone that says there's a man locked in your upstairs bedroom or upstairs bathroom because someone was trying to buy cocaine from him. And then he took the money and didn't give the cocaine or something, and then locked himself in the bathroom. So the guy's like beating the door down. Party killer. We have to kick everybody out. We go upstairs and we're like, can you please get out of the bathroom? Like, you killed the party. It's only been going for 3 hours. This is a lot of fun. He busts out of the door, sprints out, huge bag of cocaine in his hand. This is the first time I've ever seen cocaine. First time. But it is causing an uproar on the upper floor of this house. Everyone's screaming for it. People are asking you if they can still get it from him, all this stuff. And I'm like, what is this? I grew up in a Christian, Catholic, and then Christian environment. So like heavily influenced by church and God and community groups. And I have never seen or heard about this stuff before. Very interested, to say the least. Party ends, school starts. My friend and I are having a great time. We're doing our school. We're getting she's getting higher grades than me because she's very, very smart. She's getting like 90s. I'm getting like 80s to 85s. I'm proud of it. It's law school. That's hard. On the weekends, we are partying. One weekend though, I want to bring you to in particular. It starts early in my university career. I'm at this like frat house, trap house type situation that I'm living in. And our upstairs neighbor, who will remain unnamed as well, unless I accidentally say it like before, comes downstairs and she's like, I'm gonna have my boyfriend over and we're gonna have like a little get together with him. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. Like, why are you even asking? Like, let's do this. So he comes over and he pulls out of his pocket a little bag of cocaine. Okay? I am drinking heavily as soon as I get to university. I never really have before, but when you're surrounded by the culture of everybody else drinking like that, and you're trying to escape something, and I was trying to escape the trauma and the negativity the trauma was bringing me, I start smoking too. Smoking? Drinking a lot. Smoking cigarettes too, I guess, is what I was trying to say. Anyways, it was kind of getting boring for me. It wasn't really doing the trick. Like, I would drink a lot, but I didn't seem to be having as much fun as everybody else around me. The boyfriend comes over, he pulls out a little bag of cocaine, he sets it down on the table, and he says, who wants some? My hand's in the air. I'm like, I will try it. And my friend's like, I wouldn't try that if I were you. She's like, I'm not gonna do it. And I'm like, well, I am. I want to see what all this is about, and I have no respect for myself, and I really don't care what happens, so I'm gonna try it. So he lines it up for us, and I walk over, and I try it. My whole life has changed instantly. Instantly. And I'm gonna leave that part here, and I'll go into it next time. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 20. I'm gonna take you back to my harrowing childhood because I wanna show you just how prominent it was that torture was a form of sport for them. So I was a child. I was probably about 4 or 5. The reason I know I was this age is because I was in the first house that I lived in with this adopted family. So I was very, very young. And there was one day that they just came into my room, and I wasn't allowed to leave my room unless they told me that I was allowed to leave. But they said, come on now, we're gonna go play in the backyard. This was crazy to me because I was never involved in any family events. I wasn't involved in dinner. I wasn't involved in movies. I wasn't involved in anything. If they were sitting downstairs, like talking as a family, I would have to stand in the corner with my back to them. It was like a whole thing. So they're asking me to come outside to play with them. And I'm like, this is crazy. Things are taking a turn. I'm still hopeful at this age because I don't realize that it's going to stay this bad forever. They call me outside, and we have a backyard. It has a wooden deck, an above ground pool to the right side, 3 steps down into the grass part. On the left, there's a shed that we store like our lawnmower and everything. There's a small patch of grass, and then to the right, there's a jungle gym, sort of rainbow, like kids playground. I was never allowed in this. My whole family is sitting on the edge of the steps. My brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, and we have some dogs running around. At this time, we have 2 Shih Tzus and 1 German Shepherd. Not trained, by the way. My family calls me over. They put a scarf around my neck, and then they tell the German Shepherd to come over and to grab the edge of the scarf. And he does. He listens. I have no idea how they trained him how to do this because they didn't train him on anything else, but they trained him how to grab the scarf from around my neck. And they all laughed as he pulled the scarf and dragged me around the backyard. And I remember in that moment, I was suffocating. Like I couldn't breathe. I was clawing at the ground. And they were just sitting there laughing, and he was going in laps around the yard, just dragging my little body behind him. And they only stopped it when I started to physically go blue. Like I'm assuming I went blue because I was like, and it went on forever, like laps and laps and laps, and I couldn't breathe. They finally stopped it. That was just one example though. There's many examples of them just torturing me for fun. Some of the examples are my sister would set things up just so I could get in trouble, but my mom would know that she was the plant for these things. But still, it was part of their little dynamic. They would set a little fire, pretend it was me that started it, and then come in and just like shit on me for it, you know? And I mean like physically or emotionally, just like really rip into me. Some of the examples of this is my sister would come into my room. When I was younger, she used to pee behind my dresser. And then she would grab my mom and say, she's done it again. She peed behind the dresser. And then I would get reprimanded for that. And when I was younger, before I started really showing signs of abuse, even though I know I did before, they used to physically really hurt me. So they would set up these little things like pretending I peed behind the dresser. And they would call the whole family over, line them up, and then bend me. Oh, this is crazy, actually. Trigger warning. They would bend me over one of those little baby fences or dog fences that prevents like small things from going room to room. Strip me of all my clothes and then just beat the crap out of me, which I know is like kind of crazy to post on TikTok, but it's true. That's what they would do. And the whole family would just laugh. So if it wasn't peeing behind the curtain, things used to, I've mentioned this in my series before, but things really ramped up. As I got older, they had to get more creative because they couldn't physically put their hands on me because I started showing physical signs of abuse. So my sister wouldn't pee behind the dresser anymore because that would mean that I would get spanked. Instead, she would do like psychological things. So I would come into the room and my room walls would be stained with makeup. My mom would come in and just scream at me like, why would you need makeup? Lipstick on a pig type situations. Where'd you even get this? You're a thief. And my sister would just stand there laughing. And it was mostly like a family event to make fun of me like this. One of my favorite ones, though, is when my sister Googled how to make a noose. Then she made one and put it on my bed and just left it there for me to use. And I was, at the time, I was like, I feel like I know what this is, but I couldn't really figure it out. So I was looking it over in my hands because it was just laying on my bed. And of course, that was my mother's cue to come in and start screaming at me. She used to scream at me with such velocity that I would step back, and a lot of times I would hit the back of my dresser with my head, and I would bleed down the back of my head because I was so scared and needed, like, wanting to get away from her. So this is just a few examples of what it looked like for them to really just like torture me for fun. And I did mention that I used to have to stand with my back towards the family. while they watched the movies or had like their family time or something. And I mean that so severely. Like, I would be put there in the morning and I would have to stand there all day, and I wouldn't be allowed to leave to go to the bathroom. I wouldn't be allowed to eat. I wouldn't be allowed to get water. So they would kind of just wait for me to have to go to the bathroom, not be able to leave, and then just do it in that spot so they could all gather around me and laugh at me again. I have no idea why they did this. All of the comments on all these videos that I post are, did they get justice? Did anyone ever find out about this? And the worst part is no. Nobody believes me about this. My foster family, after I was abandoned by this family, didn't believe me. Nobody ever asked me about it again. This is my first time sharing the story publicly with people, and still I've gotten comments saying people don't believe me. Like, it really was to an extent that only is seen in movies. I have no idea why an entire collective unit decided to do this to me, decided to adopt me and then torture me for fun. Maybe they're all psychotic. I don't know. I turned out fine though. We don't have to worry too much. This is more for entertainment purposes, and so those of you that have been through abuse, don't feel so alone, because me too, girl. Don't worry. Thanks for watching. Who the fuck was my mother? Part 21. I have gone through so many different details about the ways that I was just tortured as a child, like so uniquely that it should be in a movie, seriously. But I want to show my side effects of going through that kind of abuse. So it started when I was 3 years old, and it ended when I was abandoned, which has to be around 12 or 13 years old because I was in grade 8, but I can't remember dates all that well. Anyways, so between that time period, there was such severe abuse, and if you want to see really what happened, you have to check out the other parts in this series, because there's murder attempts, starvation, so many different kinds of things that I just can't recap right now. But it had a lot of damaging effects on me psychologically when I was younger. So one of the most prominent ways that it showed up is I had such severe suicidal thoughts, such severe that I would come home every night, and when I was allowed to go back to my room for the evening to go to sleep, I would sit in bed and rip pages out of my book, and I would write suicide letters, and then I would get scared that my mom would find them, so I would rip them up and eat them. And I was too young to understand how to actually myself, so I would just stand on my bed with my hands around my throat, just trying to figure out how to end it all, but I couldn't figure it out because I was too young. And that was like a daily part of my routine, because I was just so dark and just so not wanting to live, because life was so bad every single day, like level 1000 bad every single day. And I didn't even know how it could keep getting worse, but it did. So that's one of the most prominent ways. Another one is I really needed attention. I really needed attention as a kid, and I didn't know how to get it. So I would be really disruptive in class. This is like a very common thing. Like, I would be like kind of a class clown because I needed attention. But it manifested in really different ways as well. So I used to have to do a lot of chores as a child. It was like 4 hours on school days and like 10 hours on weekends, like lots of chores filling my time. And if one of my chores were outside, which most of the time on the weekend they were outside because we lived on a farm, I would put my ankles under rocks and I would use my other foot to try to stomp down on them to break my own ankle. Because I figured if I was physically in a cast, then I would look like I was injured and people would give me sympathy, because I really needed sympathy and I really needed attention. So I would try to break my ankles a lot. I also used to try to get the dogs when I was older to attack me and break something of mine, like either my glasses or rip my shirt or something, and then I would go in, and when I would show my parents, I would hope that they would buy me something new so that I could feel love from them. That never worked though. I would always get the dogs to attack me, and then they would break my glasses and my mom would just tape them back together with like green duct tape or something. We weren't poor. She could have bought me new ones. But I just ended up giving her another way to humiliate me. So I used to go to school with like duct tape glasses and things. There were so many ways that I reached out for attention as a child. And when I got older, before I was abandoned, so between like 10, 11, and 12, because of everything that happened with those teenage boys in the basement, which I've told you about, you can watch that in the other parts. I was really hyperactive as a child sexually because of all the things that I'd been put through. And this is the part that I don't really like to touch on too much. But one of the main reactions to the abuse I had was I became like hypersexual way too early when I was on the bus to school. there was this boy who was the same age as me, and I don't know why, but we used to kiss, or he used to take his pants off sometimes. It was crazy. And it's not like I wanted it, but it was what was so familiar to me, and it was a form of attention that I was always going away or going along with it. And it was a point of shame for me for so long, because I was like, why am I doing these things? This is so embarrassing. I never wanted to contact anyone from elementary school again, because I was like, I feel like they know these things about me. But I have to remind myself that there's nothing to be ashamed of, because I was a child and I was making decisions that people taught me to make. So if you've ever done something that I've done like that, don't blame yourself. It is such a classic textbook line of abuse. The thing that's frustrating though is how many people during my childhood I would tell that I was being abused and tell that I was going through these things and be showing signs so textbook like this, but still nobody did anything. The only reason I'm sharing this part of it is so you guys can see that this is actually a very normal response to what I had been through. And it's crazy and it's really dark and it's taking me a long time to get over the things that I've done to myself. But this is just what happens. This is the cycle of abuse. And nobody talks about this because they think, oh, children are adopted, they're totally okay now. It's not true. You need to check on them constantly, because in reality, those people are complete strangers to that child. We're going to continue the Who the Fuck is My Mother series a little bit longer, I think, because I have a lot of stories that I haven't shared with you, and I would love for you guys to hear. So thank you so much for watching.